The camera does not find the shark at first. It finds a slope of dark sediment, a few pale brittle stars, and the moving dust of marine snow crossing the lights in slow diagonal lines. The ROV hovers above a continental margin where the seafloor falls away in terraces, and for several seconds the frame looks almost empty. Then, a shape separates from the background. A broad head enters from the left, low to the bottom, carried by a body longer than the camera beam can hold all at once. The animal does not rush. It passes through the artificial daylight with the patience of something that has no reason to react quickly. 6 gill openings mark the side of the head, not 5, and the single dorsal fin sits far back near the tail. The eyes catch the light for a moment and turn pale. The shark is not a fossil. It is not a monster. It is alive, moving through cold water under pressure, searching the slope for food in a world humans can only visit by machine. The control room above is nothing like the place on the monitor. People sit in chairs under white lights, watching numbers from the vehicle scroll across screens. Depth, temperature, heading, altitude above bottom. The ship rolls slightly at the surface, but the shark on the screen moves as if the surface is irrelevant, because for most of its life, it is. Between the research vessel and the animal are hundreds of meters of water, a cable under tension, and a pressure that would collapse ordinary equipment if the engineers had not built every housing to resist it. This is where the word ancient becomes complicated. It does not mean that the individual shark is unchanged from the age of dinosaurs. It does not mean that evolution stopped around it or that the deep ocean preserved it like an exhibit in a glass case. It means that some sharks living in deep water still carry features from very old branches of the shark family tree. Their bodies contain old solutions to the problems of swimming, feeding, sensing, reproducing, and surviving in places where food is scarce and light is weak or gone. Sharks are older than the forests that covered the continents, older than flowering plants, older than mammals, older than the first dinosaurs. Their early history is not preserved as neatly as the skeleton of a land animal in sandstone, because sharks are made mostly of cartilage, and cartilage usually disappears before it can fossilize. What remains most often are teeth, scales, denticles, vertebral traces, and the occasional rare impression that lets paleontologists see the outline of a body that vanished hundreds of millions of years ago. That makes the fossil record both abundant and incomplete. Shark teeth can be found by the thousands because a shark replaces them throughout life, and each tooth carries information about diet, jaw shape, and ecological role. But a tooth is not an animal. It does not show how the shark moved through a canyon, how it reacted to a squid, how it used smell in darkness, or how slowly it circled a carcass before deciding whether to feed. For that, scientists need living animals, cameras, tags, nets, specimens, and repeated observations gathered with difficulty. If ancient life beneath the surface is what brings you here, subscribing keeps the next descent close. The living sharks of the deep ocean are not one thing. Some are large animals built for scavenging and slow cruising along slopes. Some are narrow-bodied predators that look almost eel-like when they turn in the water. Some are small, dark sharks with light organs arranged in patterns across the belly. Some rise and fall through the water column at night, following prey into shallower darkness before dropping back down when daylight begins to return. Some are known from many records. Others are known from a handful of specimens, a brief video, or a body pulled from a trawl in poor condition. The deep ocean does not reward speed in the same way that surface waters can. There are fast predators there, but there is also a persistent economy of waiting. Food arrives unevenly. A dead fish, a squid, a sinking whale, a fall of planktonic remains, a layer of migrating lanternfish, a patch of crustaceans caught against a canyon wall, or a seal carcass descending from far above can change the value of a place for a few hours or for many years. A shark that lives there has to use energy carefully because every movement is paid for with calories that may not be replaced quickly. As the ROV climbs along the slope, the water above the bottom is not empty. Small animals pass through the lights like scraps of glass. Copepods flicker. Jellies open and close delicate bells. A fish turns once and disappears, leaving only a brief reflection from the eye. These are not decorations around the shark's life. They are part of the same system. The shark belongs to a food web that begins in surface water with sunlight, plankton, and carbon, then carries energy downward through sinking particles, migrating animals, scavengers, predators, and the slow work of bacteria. The descent into that system begins in color. At the surface, red light still exists, and the water can hold the familiar blues and greens of the upper ocean. With depth, the warmer colors vanish first. Red disappears. Orange and yellow fade. The world becomes blue, then dim, then black, except for flashes made by animals themselves. By the time the camera reaches the midnight zone, ordinary sunlight is gone. The ROV light is not revealing a dark room. It is creating one small circle of visibility in a habitat where most animals live without anything like daylight. Pressure builds with every meter of descent. A person feels it in the ears after only a few meters of water. But at hundreds of meters, the numbers become less intuitive. The pressure rises by about 1 atmosphere for every 10 meters of depth, and at depths where many deep-sea sharks spend their lives, the force on the body is immense by surface standards. The animals are not crushed because their bodies are not built like ours. They do not carry large air-filled spaces that collapse. Their tissues, fluids, cartilage, and organs function under conditions that would make a human body fail almost immediately. Cold shapes the pace of life. In many deep habitats, water temperatures are only a few degrees above freezing, and chemical reactions inside bodies can slow. Metabolism changes. Growth can be slow. Maturity can come late. Reproductive cycles can stretch across years instead of seasons. The result is not weakness, it is a different timescale. A deep water shark may survive by spending long periods doing very little, then using a burst of effort when prey, carrion, or opportunity appears. Food comes down as a continual fall of fragments. Marine snow is not snow in the way land animals know it. It is dead plankton, fecal pellets, mucus, tiny shells, pieces of animals, and organic material stuck together as it sinks through the water column. Some of it is eaten before it reaches the bottom. Some becomes food for filter feeders. Some settles into sediment. Some carries carbon into deep water, where it may remain away from the atmosphere for long periods. For sharks, marine snow is not usually a direct meal, but it feeds the smaller animals that feed the larger ones, and it helps maintain the deep systems through which sharks move. The slope where sixgill sharks appear on cameras is not just a ramp of mud, it is a corridor. Currents move along it. Sinking food can collect there. Canyons cut into it and funnel material from shallower waters to deeper basins. Rocky outcrops hold corals and sponges where smaller fish hide. Squid and crustaceans pass through the water above it. A large shark cruising this terrain is not wandering randomly through darkness. It is following structure, smell, temperature, depth, and the faint electrical signatures of animals that share the water. The oldest shark lineages did not evolve for the modern deep sea exactly as it exists now. Oceans have changed. Continents have moved. Sea levels have risen and fallen. Oxygen levels, temperatures, and currents have shifted repeatedly. Mass extinctions removed entire groups from the planet. New prey appeared. Old prey vanished. The deep ocean is not a museum that kept the ancient world intact. It is a living environment that has changed through time, and the sharks that remain there are survivors because their lineages kept adapting, not because they were exempt from change. Still, when a blunt-nosed sixgill moves past a camera, it is hard not to feel deep time in the shape of it. The body is heavy, broad, and simple in outline. The tail is powerful, without looking specialized for constant high-speed pursuit. The dorsal fin is set far back. The 6 gill slits, recall a condition found in old shark groups and in relatives that are far more common in the fossil record than in the living sea. Most living sharks have 5 gill openings on each side. A sixgill shows something different before it does anything at all. The name cow shark does not carry the atmosphere of the animal. It sounds plain, almost domestic, but the animals themselves are among the great deep water predators. Bluntnose sixgills can reach several meters in length, and adults often live beyond the easy reach of divers along outer continental shelves, slopes, island margins, seamounts, and deep channels. They may rise at night in some places, following prey or cooler, darker water upward, then return to greater depth as daylight strengthens. Their world is vertical as much as horizontal. A sixgill's mouth is built for a broad diet. It can take fish, rays, other sharks, squid, crustaceans, and carrion. That flexibility matters in deep water. Specializing too narrowly can be dangerous where food appears unpredictably. A large carcass may be worth visiting. A smaller shark may be worth pursuing. A fish injured by pressure change, disease, or another predator may become a meal. The deep does not always offer a clean division between hunter and scavenger. Many animals do both, because refusing available energy is a luxury. When sixgills gather at baited cameras, the footage can look almost prehistoric in the popular sense of the word. Huge heads slide in from the darkness, tails swing slowly, teeth pass near the lens. But the camera has created an event. The bait has changed the behavior of the animals by concentrating smell in the water. It is valuable evidence, but it is not a complete picture of ordinary life. The ordinary life of a sixgill is harder to film. Long movements through dark water, long intervals between meals, slow growth, mating that is rarely seen, birth in places that may be shallow compared with adult habitat, and decades of survival in a changing sea. Scientists have to be careful with that footage. A shark circling bait may look aggressive because the camera is close to the food. The same animal cruising across a slope without bait may look calm, even indifferent. Neither impression is the whole animal. Behavior is context. A predator around a meal behaves differently from a predator conserving energy between meals. An animal under research lights behaves differently from one moving beyond the beam, where no human eye is asking it to be dramatic. The frilled shark brings a different kind of ancient shape into the deep. Its body is long and flexible, closer in outline to an eel than to the familiar triangular silhouette people imagine when they hear the word shark. The head is blunt. The gill slits form frilled margins around the throat. The mouth sits near the front of the head, armed with many small three-pointed teeth that curve inward. In photographs, those teeth can look excessive, but in the animal's world, they make sense. They are not designed for cutting a seal in half. They are suited for holding slippery prey. Frilled sharks inhabit deep waters along continental slopes and outer shelf regions in parts of the world, though they are rarely encountered. Much of what is known comes from specimens caught by fisheries, animals found dead or dying near the surface, and limited observations. That creates a problem. A frilled shark brought up from depth may not show how it looked or moved in its normal habitat. Pressure change, temperature change, stress, and damage from gear can turn a living deep water predator into a strange object long before it reaches a deck. Because of this, the frilled shark has been surrounded by speculation. Its lineage is old. Its anatomy has features that seem primitive compared with many modern sharks. It has sometimes been called a living fossil, but that phrase has to be handled carefully. The living animal is not a direct, unchanged copy of a Jurassic ancestor. It is a modern species with its own evolutionary history, living now, reproducing now, feeding now, and responding to present conditions. The old features are real. The mistake is to let them replace the animal's actual biology. Picture it not as a relic in a museum jar, but as a moving body in deep water. The shark holds itself in a dark layer where the prey may be squid, fish, or other soft-bodied animals that cannot be chased for long without wasting energy. It may use a sudden lunge. It may open the jaws quickly and engulf prey that comes too close. The exact details remain uncertain because direct observations are rare. But the body suggests a predator that does not need to look like a mako to be successful. In the deep ocean, speed is only one possible answer. The mouth of a frilled shark can seem almost too wide for the head. The teeth, arranged in rows, form a pale trap. If a squid slides between them, backing out becomes difficult. The prey's soft body catches on the points. A fish that enters headfirst may be held before it can turn. The shark does not need heavy cutting teeth if the goal is to prevent escape long enough to swallow. Anatomy is not decoration. It is the record of repeated feeding problems solved over many generations. There is another reason the frilled shark feels ancient. It appears rarely, then disappears again. People meet it as an event. A trawl brings one up. A camera records a dying animal near the surface. A specimen enters a museum. A headline calls it prehistoric, and for a moment the deep sea seems to have opened a door. But most of the species' life remains hidden. The animal returns to depth in our imagination because the evidence is incomplete. The mystery comes not from magic, but from distance, pressure, and the cost of observation. The goblin shark is stranger in a different way. At first, its body looks soft, almost unfinished, with a long, flattened snout extending forward over the jaws. The skin can appear pale or pinkish because blood vessels show through. The tail is not the crescent shape of a fast open ocean hunter. The fins are small and low. It looks, when seen out of water, like a deep sea animal interrupted by the surface and displayed in conditions that do it no favors. But the snout and jaws are not accidents. They are equipment for darkness. Goblin sharks are best known for the way the jaws can shoot forward. In preserved specimens, this created confusion because different jaw positions made the animals look like different forms. In life, the protrusion is part of the strike. A prey animal near the snout can be detected, approached, and then captured as the jaws extend outward. The teeth are narrow and pointed, better for gripping fish, squid, and crustaceans than for slicing large prey. The whole action is sudden, but the animal itself may spend much of its time moving slowly through deep water, conserving energy until the moment of capture. That long snout is covered with sensory pores. Sharks detect electric fields produced by living animals, and in darkness, over mud, near slopes, or in the open midwater, this sense matters. A fish hidden near sediment, a crustacean moving against the bottom, or a squid turning in the water leaves more than a visual trace. It gives off signals that a shark can use at close range. Vision still matters for many deep water sharks, especially where bioluminescence flashes or faint downwelling light remain, but darkness does not leave them blind in the human sense. They have inherited and refined other ways of reading the water. The goblin shark's family has an old fossil history, but again, the living species is not a time capsule. It belongs to the modern ocean. It is found in scattered records from deep waters in many regions, usually along continental slopes. Because encounters are uncommon, the details of its daily life remain uncertain. Scientists can describe anatomy, stomach contents, depths of capture, and the mechanics of the jaws. They can infer hunting strategies from form and from rare video, but they cannot yet follow a goblin shark through weeks of ordinary life the way they might follow an animal on land with a camera trap. The deep ocean is full of animals that are known in pieces: a tooth, a stomach content, a depth label, a photograph on a deck, a few seconds of video, a genetic sequence, a tag track. These pieces matter because together they begin to outline a life, but the outline is not the same as the life itself. For ancient-looking sharks, the danger is that the outline becomes mythology before it becomes biology. The script writes itself too easily, a monster from the age of dinosaurs, unchanged, lurking in darkness. The real story is quieter and more interesting. A living predator, adapted to sparse food, pressure, cold, and the limits of light. Greenland sharks carry the word ancient in a more literal direction, not because their shape is especially primitive, but because individual animals may live for centuries. In cold Arctic and North Atlantic waters, these large sleeper sharks move slowly through a world of low temperature and seasonal darkness. Radiocarbon dating of eye lens proteins has suggested extraordinary ages, with lifespans at least in the hundreds of years for large individuals. The estimates are broad, and the science is careful, but the implication remains remarkable. Some Greenland sharks alive now may have begun life before many modern nations existed in their present form. A Greenland shark does not need to look dramatic to be extraordinary. Its body is heavy and cylindrical. The eyes are small, sometimes damaged or parasitized. The swimming can appear slow, almost reluctant, yet the animal feeds on fish, seals, carrion, and whatever the cold ocean makes available. Stomach contents have included surprising remains, but a stomach is only a record of meals that happened, not proof of how every meal was taken. Some prey may be scavenged. Some may be captured alive. In deep cold water, the boundary between hunting and finding is often blurred. Longevity changes the meaning of vulnerability. An animal that grows slowly, matures late, and produces young at a slow rate cannot replace itself quickly when adults are removed. For a small surface fish with many eggs and fast generations, a population may recover if pressure is reduced. For a deep water shark, recovery may take decades or longer. This is one of the hard truths of the deep ocean. The same slow strategies that allow survival in cold, food-limited environments can make species poorly equipped to handle sudden human extraction. The Arctic adds another layer to the story. Greenland sharks move through waters that are changing as the climate warms, ice patterns shift, and northern ecosystems reorganize. Their lives are long enough to overlap human history in a way most animals do not. A shark alive today may have passed through different regimes of sea ice, fishing pressure, temperature, and prey availability. But longevity does not make an animal immune. It only spreads its life across more change. The deep and cold can hide animals from sight, but not from the systems that reach them indirectly. Sleeper sharks elsewhere carry similar themes. Pacific sleeper sharks inhabit cold waters and can move between depths, sometimes appearing in deep-sea footage as large, slow predators or scavengers. They are not as famous as white sharks or tiger sharks because they do not usually meet humans at beaches. Their lives unfold in dim cold water, along slopes, shelves, and basins where cameras are rare. When one appears near a baited camera, it can seem almost ghostly, not because it is supernatural, but because a huge animal enters a frame that had seemed too dark and too quiet to contain it. A sleeper shark near a carcass may move with great deliberation. The head tilts. The mouth opens. The body bends around the food. Other scavengers keep distance or try to feed at the edges. Hagfish may already be inside the tissue. Crabs may pull at exposed flesh. Amphipods may swarm in numbers that make the water shimmer. The shark is not a villain in this scene. It is part of the recycling of a body into the deep sea food web. Death at the surface, death in the water column, death on the bottom, all become energy that moves through other lives. Whale falls show this process at its largest. When a whale sinks to the deep seafloor, it becomes a temporary island of food. Sharks may arrive early to remove soft tissue. Hagfish, sleeper sharks, crabs, and other scavengers can reduce the carcass dramatically. Later, worms, mollusks, microbes, and chemical processes continue the work. Bones release lipids. Sulfide can support specialized communities. A single whale can feed a succession of animals for years. For deep water sharks, such falls are not common enough to rely on constantly, but they are large enough that finding one can matter. The deep sea is often described as empty because a camera can look into a large volume and see little. That impression is understandable and misleading. Life in the deep is spread out. The animals may be thinly distributed, but the habitat is enormous. A shark may travel through long stretches where the camera would see only particles, then enter a zone where prey concentrates around a slope, a seamount, a canyon, an oxygen boundary, a front, a carcass, or a migrating layer. Sparseness at one moment does not mean absence across the system. Seamounts are especially important in this kind of ocean. A seamount rises from the seafloor into currents, interrupting flow and creating places where plankton, fish, squid, and other animals can concentrate. Hard surfaces provide anchor points for corals and sponges. Those structures shelter smaller organisms. Predators follow. A shark moving along a seamount is not just passing over rock, it is moving through a three-dimensional habitat shaped by current, elevation, food, and the animals that gather around structure. Submarine canyons do something similar in a different form. They cut the continental margin and can carry organic material from shallow waters down into the deep. Sediment slides, currents, and seasonal productivity can make canyons more food-rich than open slope nearby. ROV footage from canyons often shows steep walls, ledges, corals, sponges, fish, crabs, and patches of disturbed sediment where something has recently moved. A shark in a canyon may use the walls as navigation, the current as information, and the concentrated prey as opportunity. Oxygen also shapes where sharks can live. Oxygen minimum zones occur where oxygen is naturally low in the water column, often because respiration consumes it faster than mixing can replace it. Some animals tolerate low oxygen better than others. Boundaries around these zones can concentrate prey and predators. A shark moving along such a boundary is navigating an invisible landscape. The ROV camera may show only water, but the animal may be responding to oxygen, temperature, pressure, smell, and prey distribution in ways the screen does not directly reveal. Deep-sea sharks are often dark on the back and lighter below, but in the deep, color has different meaning. Red can appear black where red light is absent. Some animals are transparent. Some are silver. Some are velvet dark. Some make their own light. Sharks are not usually thought of as glowing animals, yet some deep water sharks are bioluminescent. Lantern sharks and kitefin sharks carry light organs in the skin, often on the belly and flanks, producing a faint glow that may help with counter-illumination, communication, camouflage, or other functions still being studied. A lantern shark is not impressive because of size. Many are small, some small enough to fit in a human hand, but they are part of a successful deep-sea pattern. Large eyes help gather limited light. Dark skin reduces visibility. Photophores produce controlled glows. The belly light can help match faint illumination from above, making the animal harder to see from below. Patterns of light may also signal species identity or help coordinate behavior. In deep water, light is not simply brightness. It is language, concealment, lure, warning, and error. The kitefin shark changed what scientists could say about glowing vertebrates. It can reach around the length of a human adult and has been identified as the largest known luminous vertebrate. The glow is not a dramatic beam like a flashlight. It is a subtle blue light produced across parts of the body. In the darkness where it lives, subtlety is enough. A small change in brightness can erase a silhouette. A faint signal can matter to another animal nearby. In the deep ocean, the difference between being seen and not seen may decide whether a shark feeds, mates, or becomes food. Bioluminescence is common in the open water column, especially below the sunlit zone, but sharks use it in ways that are still being worked out. Unlike many fishes that use bacteria to produce light, luminous sharks appear to control their own photophores hormonally. Their glow is slow, compared with a flash from a jellyfish or shrimp. That may fit the need for sustained camouflage more than sudden signaling. The details vary among species, and many have barely been observed in life. Again, the deep gives evidence in fragments. The dwarf lantern shark shows how scale changes in the deep. People often imagine ancient sharks as giant animals, Because the public memory of prehistoric sharks is dominated by enormous jaws and large teeth. But deep evolutionary success can also be small. A shark shorter than a person's hand can survive by feeding on small animals, hiding in darkness, using light carefully, and producing young in a world where every calorie matters. Smallness is not failure. It is one strategy among many, and in some environments, it is the strategy that works. Not every animal called a ghost shark is a shark. Chimeras, or holocephalans, are close relatives of sharks and rays within the broader cartilaginous fishes, but they are their own lineage. They belong in this story because they share ancient ancestry with sharks and inhabit many deep water environments, moving over seafloor and slopes with wing-like pectoral fins. Their tooth plates, large eyes, and delicate bodies can look otherworldly on ROV footage. But the distinction matters. The deep sea does not need exaggeration to be strange. Accurate names make it more interesting, not less. Chimeras show another way cartilage-bodied fishes persisted. Instead of rows of replaceable teeth like many sharks, they have grinding tooth plates. Some feed on hard-shelled invertebrates. Some cruise near the bottom, using sensory systems to locate prey. Their embryos develop in cases that can look like objects lost from another world when found on the seafloor. Including them carefully helps reveal the larger family of ancient cartilaginous fishes without pretending every ghostly animal on the bottom is a shark. The shark fossil record is dominated by teeth, and teeth can be overwhelming in number. A beach can hold shark teeth from animals that died millions of years apart. A single fossil bed can contain the remains of many species mixed by currents, sediment, and time. Paleontologists examine tooth shape, serrations, root structure, and wear. Broad triangular teeth suggest cutting. Needle-like teeth suggest gripping slippery prey. Crushing teeth suggest shells. But there are always limits. A tooth can show a feeding tool, not the full behavior of the animal that carried it. Dermal denticles add another piece. Shark skin is not smooth in the way it appears at a distance. It is covered with tiny tooth-like scales that can reduce drag, protect the body, and carry information about movement. Fossil denticles can indicate the presence of sharks even when teeth are absent. In the deep sea, skin also becomes part of sensing, hydrodynamics, and in some species, light production. The surface of a shark is not just a boundary between animal and water. It is a working organ system. Cartilage makes sharks flexible and lighter than a bony skeleton of the same size would be. It also makes their fossil history difficult to read. Whole bodies are rare. Exceptional preservation matters disproportionately. Each rare fossil with body outline, fin position, spine, or soft tissue impression can shift the way scientists reconstruct ancient forms. This is why living deep water sharks matter so much. They are not fossils, but they can show how certain old anatomical arrangements function in a real ocean. Survival across deep time is not the same as superiority. Sharks survived multiple extinction events, but not every shark lineage survived. Many disappeared completely. Some ancient forms were unlike anything living today. Some had strange spines, crushing plates, bizarre fins, or body plans that did not persist. Modern sharks are the survivors of a filtered history. The deep ocean holds old branches, but it also holds absence because extinction removed many experiments that once worked for a time. During the age of dinosaurs, marine reptiles dominated many seas. Ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, mosasaurs later in the Cretaceous, and other reptiles filled roles that whales, seals, and large predatory fishes occupy today. Sharks lived alongside them, sometimes as predators, sometimes as scavengers, sometimes as prey. The disappearance of marine reptiles at the end of the Cretaceous changed ocean ecosystems. Sharks did not simply inherit everything at once, but the loss of large reptilian predators opened ecological space over time for new arrangements of marine life. Megalodon belongs to shark history, but not to the deep sea story in the way many people imagine. It was an enormous shark of later oceans, not a surviving predator in trenches. Its fossil record is mostly teeth and vertebrae, and those teeth show an animal adapted for large prey in warmer, productive waters. The temptation to place it in the modern deep is understandable, because darkness is where the human mind hides what it cannot see. But evidence does not support a living megalodon. The ancient sharks roaming the deep today are not secret giants from rumor. They are real animals with real names, and they are more interesting than a myth that refuses to die. The deep ocean does preserve some lineages that seem old, because the conditions there can be stable in certain ways. Temperatures may change slowly. Light is absent. Seasonal changes are muted compared with the surface, but stability is not universal. Food supply can vary with surface productivity, climate cycles, currents, oxygen, and the movement of prey. Seafloor habitats can be disturbed by landslides, volcanic activity, sediment flows, trawling, mining tests, and the fall of large carcasses. The deep is not frozen. It is slow in some processes and sudden in others. A shark's senses make this slow and sudden world readable. Smell can carry information across distance, especially from a carcass or injured animal. The lateral line detects water movement and vibration. Electroreception picks up weak fields around living bodies. Hearing and pressure sensitivity help locate motion. Vision responds to faint light, contrast, and bioluminescence. Together, these senses allow a shark to interpret a habitat that would look almost featureless to us without instruments. The rub has its own senses, but they are crude compared with the animals in some ways. It has cameras, sonar, lights, manipulator arms, temperature probes, sampling boxes, thrusters, and navigation systems. It can hover where a diver cannot. It can record what humans could not survive seeing directly, but it is noisy, bright, and limited by its field of view. The shark sees the machine as one event in the water. The machine sees the shark as an event in a recording. Both are partial encounters. When a sixgill turns toward an rub, the motion can feel deliberate. The head swings. The mouth opens slightly. The eye reflects. Sometimes the shark bumps the vehicle or investigates the light, the bait, or the electrical field. That contact can remind viewers that observation is not neutral. A machine inserted into the deep changes the space around it. It brings light where there was none, noise where there was low-frequency background, and sometimes scent where bait has been attached. Scientists account for this, but the footage remains a negotiation between curiosity and disturbance. Trawls offer another kind of evidence, often rougher and more destructive. A net dragged along deep slopes can bring up sharks, chimeras, fish, crustaceans, corals, sponges, and sediment in one damaged mass. For decades, many deep-sea species were known this way. The specimens mattered. They allowed description, measurement, dissection, stomach analysis, reproductive study, and taxonomy. But they also came at a cost. A deep water shark in a trawl is often dead or dying before it can be studied. The body may be distorted by pressure change. The habitat may be damaged by the gear that retrieved it. Museum jars hold the aftermath of these encounters. A frilled shark in preservative. A small lantern shark with photophores no longer glowing. A goblin shark head showing the jaws partly extended. A chimera embryo case. Rows of teeth in drawers. Labels carry locality, date, depth, collector, and sometimes the uncertainty of old records. These objects look still, but they are active in science. Researchers return to them with new methods, comparing anatomy, extracting genetic material when possible, revising relationships, and linking old specimens to new observations. Environmental DNA adds a more recent layer. Water can carry traces of animals that passed through it, fragments of skin, mucus, waste, and cells. By sampling water and sequencing DNA, Scientists can sometimes detect species without seeing or catching them. This is powerful in the deep sea, where visual encounters are rare. But eDNA also has limits. It can drift, it can degrade, it can show presence without behavior. A genetic trace tells us that an animal was connected to a place, not how it moved, what it ate, or whether it was breeding there. Tags can follow sharks beyond the moment of capture. Pressure and temperature sensors record depth use. Satellite-linked tags can release and transmit when they reach the surface. Acoustic tags can be detected by receivers. These tools have shown vertical migrations, habitat preferences, and movements across slopes and basins. But tagging deep water sharks is difficult. The animal has to be caught or approached. The tag must stay attached. The data must be recovered or transmitted. Every track is valuable because it turns a single encounter into a path. Those paths often reveal that deep-sea sharks are not confined to one flat layer. They move through depth. Some spend daylight deeper and nights shallower. Some use shelves when young and slopes as adults. Some move along temperature boundaries. Some follow prey layers that themselves rise and fall daily. The old image of deep-sea animals as motionless creatures waiting in one place is incomplete. Many conserve energy, but conservation is not the same as stillness. The deep sea is crossed by movements, many of them invisible from the surface. Deal vertical migration is one of the largest animal movements on Earth. Every night, countless small fish, crustaceans, squid, and gelatinous animals move upward from deeper water to feed under cover of darkness. Then, descend again before daylight exposes them to predators. Sharks can connect to this migration directly or indirectly. A predator that rises with the migrating layer enters a temporary market of prey. A predator that waits along a slope may intercept animals moving past structure. The migration ties surface productivity to deep predators in a daily pulse. Lanternfish are part of that pulse. They form scattering layers visible to sonar, layers once mistaken for the seafloor because they reflected sound so strongly. These fish are not sharks, but they matter to sharks. They eat plankton and are eaten by larger fish, squid, marine mammals, seabirds, and deep water predators. A shark that feeds on squid is also linked to the lanternfish the squid consumed. Food webs are not simple ladders. They are networks of energy moving through bodies, depths, and nights. Squid are especially important in deep-sea shark diets. Soft-bodied, muscular, and often fast in short bursts, they occupy many depths and sizes. Their beaks preserve and stomachs when flesh does not, giving researchers evidence after digestion has erased other details. A shark stomach containing squid beaks tells a story of prey, but also of interpretation. Did the shark catch a living squid? Did it scavenge a dead one? Did it eat a fish that had eaten squid? Scientists use context, size, freshness, and repeated patterns to make careful inferences, not dramatic certainty. Scars add evidence of encounters that did not end in death. Sharks can carry bites, abrasions, parasite marks, mating scars, and wounds from fishing gear. Some deep water animals show sucker marks from large squid. Others show healed injuries from predators or conspecifics. A scar is a record of contact, but it does not narrate itself. It may show that a shark survived an attack, a mating event, a collision, or a failed feeding attempt. In the deep sea, even the surface of the body becomes a document that has to be read with caution. Reproduction is among the hardest parts of deep-sea shark life to observe. Many sharks give birth to live young or produce large egg cases, depending on the species. They often produce relatively few offspring compared with bony fishes. Gestation can be long. Maturity can be late. Nursery areas may be separate from adult habitat. For some species, pregnant females and juveniles are found at different depths than adult males. This matters because fishing in one depth range can affect a particular life stage disproportionately. A pregnant deep water shark is carrying more than embryos. It is carrying the future of a slow population. When such an animal is removed, the loss can be greater than one adult. In species that mature late, every breeding female represents years or decades of survival before reproduction. This is why deep water shark conservation cannot be treated like management of fast-growing fish. The biology is different. The margin for error is smaller. The deep sea was once protected partly by difficulty. It was hard to reach, hard to fish, hard to map, and hard to imagine as a place of economic extraction. That protection has weakened. Deep water fisheries expanded as shallower stocks declined or became regulated. Longlines, trawls, and nets reached slopes where slow-growing sharks lived. Liver oil, meat, fins, and bycatch all became pathways by which deep water species entered human markets. The animals did not become less vulnerable because they were out of sight. Deep water sharks and rays are now recognized as among the marine vertebrates most sensitive to overexploitation. Many share traits that make recovery slow: long life, late maturity, low reproductive output, and specialized habitat use. A population can appear stable until it is not, because deep systems are difficult to monitor. Decline may be discovered only after years of removal. The ocean's size can hide scarcity. A few animals still seen on cameras can give a false sense of abundance if the larger population has already fallen. This is not a reason to turn the deep sea into a tragedy before the evidence. It is a reason to be precise. Some species are better studied than others. Some are threatened. Some are data deficient. Some may be locally common, but poorly understood globally. Conservation begins with knowing the difference. A shark called ancient in a video title may still need a modern stock assessment, bycatch reduction, habitat protection, and trade monitoring. Deep time does not protect an animal from a hook. The language used around sharks also matters. Calling them monsters makes it easier to treat them as spectacle. Calling them relics can make it seem as if their real lives happened in the past. They are neither. They are predators, scavengers, prey, mates, embryos, juveniles, and old individuals moving through real water. They fail hunts. They heal. They starve. They follow odors. They avoid larger danger. They reproduce slowly. They die and become food for other animals. Their strangeness is not separate from ordinary biology. It is ordinary biology under deep sea conditions. The first sharks did not look exactly like the sharks we know. Early cartilaginous fishes experimented with forms that would seem unfamiliar today. Over hundreds of millions of years, some lines disappeared and others radiated. Modern shark diversity includes reef hunters, filter-feeding giants, open ocean predators, bottom-dwelling ambush species, deep-sea scavengers, glowing small sharks, polar sleepers, and slope-dwelling forms with ancient traits. The word shark covers all of them, which means it covers more evolutionary variety than most people imagine. The deep ocean selects for traits and combinations that can seem contradictory. Large size can help an animal store energy and avoid predators, but it increases food needs. Small size reduces energy demands, but increases vulnerability. Slow metabolism saves calories, but limits speed and recovery. Broad diets reduce dependence on one prey, but require flexible feeding. Bioluminescence can conceal and signal, but it costs energy and may attract attention if used poorly. Every trait solves one problem while creating or intensifying another. A sixgill's broad body and slow cruising work because the animal lives in a world where patience can pay. A goblin shark's protruding jaws work because prey may be encountered at close range in darkness. A lantern shark's glow works because matching faint light from above can erase its outline from below. A Greenland shark's slow life works in cold water where urgency is expensive. None of these animals is primitive in the sense of being unfinished. Each is a complete response to a particular set of pressures. Even the teeth show this variety. Sixgill lower teeth are comb-like and saw-edged, suited for cutting and holding. Goblin shark teeth are long and narrow, suited for gripping. Frilled shark teeth are small, repeated traps. Lantern shark teeth vary between jaws and species. Fossil shark teeth reveal still more forms, crushing plates, cutting blades, needles, serrated triangles, and shapes that do not map neatly onto living animals. Teeth are the most durable part of the story, and they are also among the most specialized. In a museum drawer, a row of fossil teeth can look like a clean record of domination. Sharks replacing teeth endlessly, shedding them into sediment, leaving evidence across time. But in life, every tooth is part of a moment. A bite into fish muscle, a failed strike at squid, a scrape against bone, a grip on carrion, a tooth lost and replaced. The fossil record is made from these ordinary moments multiplied across millions of animals and millions of years. The deep-sea camera returns us to moments instead of abstractions. A shark's pectoral fin tilts slightly to adjust lift. The tail moves with a slow lateral sweep. Sediment rises when the body passes close to the bottom. A small fish freezes near a rock. A crab lifts its claws, not because it can defeat the shark, but because every animal responds with the tools it has. The ROV lights make the scene visible, but the scene existed before the lights arrived and will continue after the vehicle leaves. There are times when footage shows only absence. The vehicle moves for minutes over mud. Marine snow crosses the frame. A sea cucumber appears, then another. A brittle star lies half buried. The control room waits. Then a shark appears without warning, not because it materialized from nowhere, but because the camera's world is tiny. In the deep sea, an animal can be close and invisible until it enters the beam. Human surprise is often a measure of our narrow view. This narrow view shapes public imagination. Surface animals are observed repeatedly, from many angles, in bright conditions. Their behavior can be filmed, compared, and recognized. Deep sea sharks arrive as fragments: a head in a trawl, a body at a bait station, a track from a tag, a news story about age, a strange photograph shared without context. The mind fills the gaps. It reaches for monsters, relics, and legends. Science moves more slowly, asking what the evidence actually shows. The evidence shows that ancient-looking sharks occupy a wide range of deep habitats: outer shelves, upper slopes, seamount flanks, submarine canyons, cold Arctic basins, island margins, open water above deep seafloor. Some are benthic, moving near the bottom. Some are benthopelagic, crossing between bottom and water column. Some move into shallower water at night. Some are caught deeper than they are filmed. Depth ranges are not walls. They are patterns made from many observations, and they often change with age, sex, region, season, temperature, oxygen, and prey. Juveniles can live differently from adults. A young sixgill may use shallower nursery areas while adults remain deeper. A small shark may need cover that a large adult no longer requires. Young animals face predators that adults can ignore. They feed on smaller prey, grow slowly, and carry the future of the population in bodies that may be rarely seen. If a fishery removes juveniles in nursery habitat, the impact can be delayed and difficult to detect. The absence appears years later when fewer adults enter the breeding population. Sex differences also matter. Males and females may occupy different depths or regions at certain times. Pregnant females may move to particular areas. Mating may leave scars. Embryos may develop for long periods. Some species may segregate by size or sex in ways that make samples misleading. A trawl in one place at one time might catch mostly males, or juveniles, or pregnant females, and without enough context. Researchers have to avoid turning a sample into a universal claim. This is why repeated observation is so important. One record is a point. Many records begin to form a map. A specimen shows anatomy. Many specimens show variation. A single video shows an event. Many videos from different depths and regions show behavior patterns. A tag track shows one animal's route. Many tracks reveal habitat use. The deep sea is difficult not because it is empty, but because the cost of turning points into patterns is high. ROV pilots become part of that process. They learn how to move without stirring too much sediment, how to hold position in current, how to approach an animal without driving it away, how to collect a sample without crushing it, and how to keep a vehicle safe against rock, cable strain, and pressure. Their work is technical and quiet. A shark passing through the lights may become a few seconds in a documentary, but behind those seconds are hours of navigation, maintenance, ship time, and decision-making. On deck, the sea may look ordinary. Gray water, wind, cable, A-frame. Winch, people in waterproof jackets. The shark habitat is not visible from there. It is stacked below, layer after layer, with temperature gradients, oxygen patterns, currents, migrating animals, and slopes the ship cannot see directly. The surface hides the deep not by secrecy, but by scale. The ocean is too thick for human senses. Sound travels differently through that water than light. Smell spreads in plumes, twisted by current. A carcass releases chemicals that can carry through the dark and draw scavengers from distance. A shark following such a plume is moving through a shape that the camera cannot show. It may overshoot, turn, reacquire the scent, and adjust. What looks like wandering could be tracking. What looks like hesitation could be sampling information. Electroreception adds a more intimate field. Every muscle contraction in a prey animal creates weak electrical signals. Sharks detect these at close range through sensory organs concentrated around the head. In deep water, where vision is limited, this ability can help locate prey hidden in sediment or hovering just beyond visual range. It also means human equipment may be noticed in ways we do not intend. Cameras, lights, batteries, and motors make signals. The animal's curiosity may be sensory investigation, not aggression. The lateral line reads movement. Tiny changes in pressure along the body reveal water displacement from prey, obstacles, currents, and other animals. A shark does not need to see every object to know the water has changed. This sense is especially valuable in darkness, turbulence, and close quarters. Around canyons and seamounts, where currents break around structure, the lateral line helps turn water movement into information. Vision remains important, but not in the way surface animals depend on it. Some deep-sea sharks have large eyes for gathering faint light. Others have smaller eyes and rely more heavily on other senses. Bioluminescent flashes can reveal prey or predators briefly. Downwelling light in the twilight zone creates silhouettes. In the midnight zone, the ROV's white lights are alien. They make colors visible that may have little meaning where the animal lives. A shark appearing pink, brown, gray, or black in footage is partly being translated by our equipment. Translation is a constant problem. A dead deep sea shark on deck may look grotesque because the tissues have relaxed, the stomach has expanded, the jaws have shifted, or the skin has dried. A preserved specimen may lose color and shape. A trawled body may be bent or torn. A rare animal photographed under bad conditions can define public perception for decades. For deep-sea species, the first image people see is often the least fair to the animal. This happened with many deep-sea animals. Blobfish became a joke after decompression and tissue distortion. Goblin sharks became horror images because dead specimens showed jaws and skin in unnatural states. Frilled sharks became sea serpent stand-ins because their bodies are long and rarely seen. The real animals are adapted to pressure, water support, darkness, and cold. Remove them from those conditions, and the body tells a distorted story. A better way to imagine them is to keep them in water. A goblin shark hovering just above a slope, snout angled slightly downward, sensing. A frilled shark bending through midwater, not thrashing, but moving with controlled flexibility. A sixgill crossing a baited field, its body casting a slow shadow over crabs. A lantern shark holding its faint glow against the last light from above. A Greenland shark cruising under ice-dark water where the temperature makes urgency unnecessary. Ancient sharks also remind us that predation is not constant violence. Most predators spend more time not attacking than attacking. They travel, rest, digest, avoid risk, locate mates, and wait. A failed strike costs energy. An injury can be fatal if it prevents feeding. A predator must decide when not to chase. In the deep sea, where meals may be far apart, restraint is not a moral quality, it is survival. The frilled shark's jaws may be startling, but they probably close on prey far less often than the imagination suggests. The goblin shark's jaw extension is dramatic, but it is a feeding mechanism, not a performance. The sixgill's size is impressive, but size also means a constant need to balance energy gained and energy spent. Even the largest deep-water sharks live within budgets. The ocean does not reward unnecessary motion. Carrion is part of that budget. A dead squid sinking from above. A fish killed by another predator and abandoned. A marine mammal carcass falling through water. A whale arriving on the bottom. Scavenging is sometimes treated as lesser than hunting, but in the deep sea, scavenging is one of the main ways energy is redistributed. Animals that can find and use carrion help recycle rare concentrated food. Sharks are part of that process. At a baited lander, hagfish may arrive first, or amphipods, or small fish. Then larger scavengers enter the scene. A shark's arrival changes the geometry. Smaller animals move aside or feed at margins. The shark bites, twists, and tears. The camera records a scene that looks violent because feeding is physically forceful, but there is no malice in it. There is only energy changing form, from dead tissue into living body. The deep seafloor around carcasses can become temporarily crowded. In a habitat where animals are normally spread thinly, a food fall creates a gathering. Some species specialize in finding these events quickly, others arrive by chance. Sharks with strong senses of smell and large movement ranges can be important early visitors. Their feeding opens tissue for smaller scavengers and microbes. A large bite is not just consumption, it also changes access for other animals. The abyssal plains beyond slopes and seamounts can seem too vast for sharks to matter. But large predators and scavengers cross these spaces too. The plains receive marine snow, occasional carcasses, and the slow settlement of organic matter. They hold sea cucumbers, brittle stars, amphipods, fish, and microbial life. Shark presence may be less visually common than on productive slopes, but the deep ocean is connected by movement. An animal does not need to be everywhere to link habitats through feeding and travel. Trenches add still greater pressure and isolation, though most familiar deep-sea sharks are not trench specialists in the deepest Haddle sense. The word trench can become a dumping ground for imagined monsters, but actual trench communities are distinctive, with amphipods, snailfish, microbes, and specialized invertebrates adapted to extreme pressure. Sharks are more commonly associated with shelves, slopes, seamounts, and deep basins than the deepest trench floors. Precision matters because the deep ocean is not one uniform black layer. The twilight zone, from roughly 200 to 1,000 meters, is especially important for many sharks because it overlaps with migration, prey, and residual light. This is where surface productivity begins to fade into the deep food web. It is not bright, but it is not the midnight zone either. It contains vast numbers of small fishes, crustaceans, squid, and gelatinous animals. Some deep-water sharks spend time near or below it, rising into it at night or feeding on animals that migrate through it. The midnight zone extends below, where sunlight no longer reaches. Here, the sources of light are biological or artificial. A shark living there may encounter flashes from prey, glows from small fishes, luminous clouds from disturbed organisms, and the sudden harsh arrival of research lights. The darkness is not empty. It is full of signals, but many are not meant for human eyes. Below that, the abyssal realm spreads across much of the planet. Cold, dark, high pressure, and vast. The seafloor is often sedimented, with manganese nodules in some regions, tracks from animals, scattered bones, sponges, and the slow evidence of life moving across mud. Sharks may not be the dominant image of the abyssal plain, but the systems that feed sharks connect to abyssal processes. Carbon sinks. Carcasses fall. Currents move. The deep ocean is continuous even when habitats differ. Hydrothermal vents and cold seeps are not central habitats for most sharks, but they show how the deep sea can create food without sunlight. Microbes use chemical energy, supporting communities of tubeworms, clams, mussels, shrimp, crabs, and other animals. Predators may visit the edges. Sharks may pass through nearby deep habitats. The importance of vents and seeps in a shark script is not to pretend sharks depend on them, but to show that the deep ocean contains multiple food systems, not just a rain of surface debris. Cold seeps can also alter local seafloor communities for long periods. Methane and sulfide feed microbial processes. Carbonate structures form. Animals gather. A shark moving along a slope may pass between ordinary sediment, coral habitat, seep influence, and canyon flow within a larger landscape. The ROV beam sees each patch as a scene. The animal experiences it as territory, opportunity, and risk. Risk for a deep-sea shark does not come only from larger predators. Parasites attach to skin, eyes, gills, and internal organs. Injuries can become infections. Prey can fight back. Mating can wound. A hook can remain embedded. Low food years can reduce condition. Changes in oxygen can compress habitat. Human noise and gear can alter behavior. The life of a predator includes vulnerability at every stage. A juvenile shark emerging into the world is already part of a dangerous system. It may be born live or emerge from an egg case depending on species. It must feed before reserves run low. It must avoid larger fish, sharks, marine mammals in some regions, and the hazards of habitat. It carries ancient ancestry, but ancestry does not feed it. Survival is immediate. It begins with small prey, shelter, and the ability to function in the water where it was born. Growth rings, vertebrae, eye lenses, tag data, and chemical signatures can all help scientists estimate age and movement. None is perfect. Deep water shark aging can be difficult because growth may be slow and the usual markers ambiguous. The Greenland shark age work is famous partly because it used eye lens proteins and radiocarbon signals from nuclear testing as time markers. That kind of method shows how modern human history can become embedded in animal tissue, giving researchers a clock where ordinary counting fails. The thought is startling. A shark's eye may contain a record of time that crosses centuries. The individual does not remember as humans remember, but its body persists. It grows slowly, carries scars, accumulates chemical traces, and continues moving through water as human generations rise and vanish above it. This is not a reason to romanticize the animal. It is a reason to understand that some deep sea lives unfold on timescales our management systems rarely respect. Ancient sharks survived because their lineages found ways to pass through change. But past survival does not guarantee future survival. The Permian extinction, the end Cretaceous extinction, ocean anoxic events, climate shifts, and changes in prey all filtered shark history. Many forms vanished. Today's deep water sharks are not proof that sharks always win. They are proof that some strategies worked under some conditions long enough to reach the present. The present is changing quickly by geological standards. Warming penetrates the ocean unevenly. Oxygen patterns shift. Acidification changes chemistry. Fisheries reach deeper. Markets create value for species once ignored. Deep-sea mining interest grows in some regions. Noise increases. Plastics and pollutants travel downward. Some of these pressures are direct. Others move through food webs. A shark may never see a city, but the consequences of human systems can still enter its body. Mercury and other contaminants can accumulate in long-lived predators. Microplastics can move through prey. Fishing gear can remove animals faster than they reproduce. Climate-driven shifts in prey can alter feeding success. A deep water shark is not isolated from the surface world simply because it lives far below it. The ocean is connected vertically. What happens in sunlight eventually matters in darkness. This connection also means surface productivity matters. A bloom of phytoplankton can feed zooplankton. Zooplankton feed fish. Fish feed squid and larger predators. Dead material sinks. Fecal pellets fall. Migrating animals carry carbon downward by feeding near the surface and respiring or dying deeper. Sharks feeding in deep water are tied to processes they never see. The sunlit ocean supports the dark ocean in ways that are often indirect but essential. The ancient feeling of a deep-sea shark comes partly from this hidden dependence. It moves through black water, but its energy may begin as sunlight. It looks separate from the surface, but its prey may rise nightly toward it. It appears isolated, but its survival may depend on distant plankton blooms, currents, and seasonal productivity hundreds or thousands of kilometers away. The deep sea is hidden from sight, not from exchange. When researchers lower a camera lander, they are using bait, lights, pressure housings, timers, batteries, and patience to enter that exchange for a short time. The lander sinks freely, sometimes taking hours to reach bottom. It touches down in sediment. A weight release or acoustic signal will later bring it back. In between, it records whatever the smell draws in. The first visitors may be tiny, then fish, then crabs, then, sometimes, a shark. The first time a large shark appears on such footage, the scale of the scene changes. The lander frame, which seemed robust, becomes small. The bait arm looks fragile. The shark's head fills the field. Its skin carries marks. Its eye moves. The mouth opens and closes. The animal may push the equipment, not with rage, but with investigation and feeding effort. For researchers, these moments are data. For viewers, they are often the moment when the deep sea stops being an abstraction. But data from baited cameras has to be interpreted with caution. Attraction distance depends on current. Arrival time depends on local abundance, hunger, and behavior. Dominant animals may exclude others. Some species may be more likely to approach bait than others. A camera can reveal presence, relative behavior, and interactions, but it cannot directly measure a full population without careful design. The deep sea requires patience not only in filming, but in analysis. Analysis can be less cinematic than the footage. Measuring body length from lasers, matching scars between sightings, identifying species from fin shape and gill count, recording depth, temperature, oxygen, and substrate, comparing arrival sequences between deployments, preserving tissue, extracting DNA, checking stomach contents under a microscope. Science often advances through tasks that look small from the outside. Together, they turn an encounter into knowledge. The shark itself does not participate in that knowledge. It leaves the frame. It continues beyond the lights. It may descend along the slope, enter a current, follow another scent, or disappear into water too wide for tracking. This is the normal ending of most deep-sea observations. The animal goes on. The people keep a recording. The gap between those two realities is where much of the deep sea remains. There are named species, and there are likely species still undescribed. Deep-water sharks and their relatives continue to be revised as genetic work, new specimens, and better sampling reveal hidden diversity. Some animals that look similar may represent distinct lineages. Some names may cover more than one population. Some rare specimens may be juveniles of known species rather than new species. Taxonomy is not just labeling, it is the map of biological difference, and in the deep sea, that map is still being drawn. Misidentification is easy when animals are rare, damaged, or known mostly from old records. A shark caught deep and photographed quickly on a moving deck may not show all diagnostic features. Teeth, fin placement, gill count, body proportions, and genetic data may be needed. The public often wants an immediate name. Science may need a specimen, comparison, and time. That delay is not uncertainty as weakness. It is the process that keeps a story from becoming fiction. The word ancient can also blur species together. A frilled shark, a sixgill, a goblin shark, and a Greenland shark are not interchangeable. Their evolutionary histories, habitats, feeding strategies, and conservation concerns differ. Calling all of them prehistoric loses detail. The better approach is to ask what kind of ancient each animal represents. Old lineage. Ancient anatomical features. Extreme individual longevity. Fossil family history. Survival of deep time extinction filters. Each meaning is different. The sixgill represents old structural features still working in a large deep water predator. The frilled shark represents a rare, eel-like branch with unusual gills and teeth, known mostly through incomplete encounters. The goblin shark represents a deep lineage with specialized jaws and sensory anatomy for capturing prey in darkness. The Greenland shark represents lifespan stretched beyond ordinary vertebrate expectations. Lantern sharks represent deep-sea miniaturization and light. Together they show that ancient sharks are not a single type of animal. They are a set of answers to different deep-sea problems. A viewer might ask why these old-looking forms are often deep. Part of the answer is sampling bias. Strange animals from deep water seem more ancient because they are less familiar. Another part is ecological. Deep habitats can preserve lineages by offering stable niches, reduced competition from some shallow water groups, and less dramatic daily environmental fluctuation. But the deep also imposes pressure, darkness, cold, and food scarcity. It is not a sanctuary for weak animals. It is a demanding environment where only working designs persist. There is no single direction to evolution. It does not always move toward faster, smarter, brighter, or larger. It moves by differential survival and reproduction under specific conditions. A slow shark can be more successful than a fast one if fast swimming wastes energy. A small eye can be enough if other senses dominate. A low reproductive rate can work in stable conditions until external mortality rises. A body plan that looks old can continue if it solves present problems. Evolution does not care whether an animal looks modern to humans. This is why the deep ocean is so useful for correcting imagination. It holds animals that violate surface expectations. Fishes with soft bodies. Sharks that glow. Predators that move slowly. Animals that live for centuries. Corals that grow in cold darkness. Communities that feed on chemistry. Food webs built around falling debris. It shows that life is not trying to become familiar. It is trying, without intention, to persist. A shark's persistence depends on reproduction, and reproduction depends on more than survival of adults. Courtship, mating, gestation, birth, nursery habitat, prey for juveniles, and avoidance of predators all have to align. In deep water species, many of these steps are hidden. Scientists may infer reproductive cycles from dissected specimens, embryo counts, egg cases, hormones, or seasonal capture records. Direct observation is rare. The lack of footage does not mean lack of behavior. It means behavior occurs beyond our small windows. Mating in sharks can be rough. Males may bite females to hold position. Scars can show this. For deep water species, such evidence may be one of the few signs of reproduction. A female's skin, fin marks, and wounds become part of the record. But again, caution matters. Not every scar is mating. Not every bite mark has the same cause. The body records contact, and scientists interpret contact through patterns. Embryos in some sharks develop inside the mother without a placenta, relying on yolk or other reproductive strategies. Others have different forms of maternal provisioning. Egg-laying species attach cases to substrate, where embryos develop exposed to the risks of the bottom. The diversity is large across sharks and their relatives. Deep-sea reproduction is not a single plan. It is a set of strategies shaped by depth, habitat, body size, and evolutionary history. Egg cases on the seafloor can look like small dark purses, tendrils, or capsules attached to coral, sponge, rock, or sediment. Some belong to skates or chimeras rather than sharks. ROVs sometimes find them in clusters, suggesting nursery areas. Protecting such sites matters because they represent concentrated early life stages. A trawl passing through may not just remove adults, it may disturb the next generation before it emerges. For live-bearing deep water sharks, nursery areas can be equally important but harder to see. Juveniles may use shallower bays, fjords, shelves, or specific slope depths. Their presence can be mistaken for adult habitat if researchers do not separate size classes. Understanding where young animals live is essential for conservation because a population cannot recover if juveniles are removed faster than they can mature. Maturity ages in some deep water sharks can be extreme. Exact numbers vary by species and method, but the general pattern is clear. Many grow slowly and reproduce slowly. This is one reason deep water fisheries are risky. An animal may be large enough to catch long before it has reproduced enough to replace itself. Removing large individuals can therefore remove decades of stored survival. The problem is made worse by the way deep water fishing can expand. A previously unfished slope may seem productive at first because long-lived animals have accumulated over time. Catches may be high in the beginning, creating the illusion of abundance. Then, numbers decline as the accumulated old individuals are removed, and the population cannot rebuild quickly. This pattern has occurred in many slow-growing deep-sea fishes, not only sharks. The deep ocean can be fished down faster than it can grow back. This does not mean all human contact with deep-water sharks is destructive. Research, careful monitoring, bycatch reduction, protected areas, depth limits, trade controls, and better species identification can reduce harm. Some fisheries can change gear or avoid vulnerable habitats. Some regions can protect nursery sites or deep coral communities. The first step is recognizing that deep water sharks have life histories that require caution. Caution is not the opposite of fascination. It is the form fascination takes when it respects the animal. A script can look at the teeth, jaws, scars, and darkness without turning the shark into a nightmare. It can describe size without exaggerating it. It can say ancient without pretending time stopped. It can keep uncertainty without weakening the story. The deep sea does not need false certainty. Its real conditions are already difficult enough to understand. Consider the frilled shark again, not as a headline, but as a body. The sixgill slits open and close as water passes across the gills. The long trunk bends with the movement of the tail. The teeth angle inward. The eyes detect what light exists. The animal lives at depths where human presence is almost always mechanical and brief. It may spend years without ever encountering a camera. Its life is made of ordinary acts repeated in darkness, moving, sensing, feeding, reproducing, avoiding harm. Consider the sixgill. A large female moves along a slope at night, perhaps shallower than she was during the day. The water is cool. The bottom rises to one side and drops away to the other. Fish hold near structure. A scent plume crosses the current. The shark turns into it. She does not know she belongs to an ancient family. She knows only the water through her senses and the need to convert opportunity into energy. Consider the goblin shark. It approaches prey in darkness, not with the open speed of a surface hunter, but with a set of tools suited to close-range capture. The snout detects. The jaws extend. The prey disappears into a mouth that looks impossible only because we are used to other mouths. In the deep sea, impossible often means only unfamiliar. Consider the Greenland shark. It moves beneath ice-dark water with a pace that makes human urgency seem absurd. Its body may contain centuries. Its life may include long periods without dramatic events. It may feed on fish, carrion, and seals when opportunity allows. It may cross depths and seasons with no witness. Its age is not a mythic crown. It is a biological fact under investigation. Extraordinary, because living tissue has carried time so long. There is a temptation to rank these animals by strangeness. The frilled shark looks strangest. The goblin shark has the most startling jaws. The Greenland shark lives the longest. The sixgill feels most like an ancient predator from a fossil mural. The kitefin glows at the largest scale. But rankings flatten them. Each animal is strange only relative to what we expect. In its own habitat, each is an answer that has been tested by survival. The deep sea tests all answers. A body that sinks too much wastes energy. A body that floats too easily cannot hold depth. A metabolism too high starves. A metabolism too low misses chances. Eyes too large cost tissue. Eyes too small lose information. A mouth too specialized fails when prey changes. A mouth too general may be inefficient. Reproduction too fast may be impossible under food limits. Reproduction too slow becomes dangerous under fishing pressure. Every design is a compromise. Sharks are especially good at compromise because their bodies are modular in evolutionary terms. Teeth can change across lineages. Body shape can shift from broad benthic forms to fast pelagic forms to eel-like deep forms. Sensory systems can be emphasized differently. Reproductive modes vary. Fins, tails, jaws, and skin all adapt to different problems. This flexibility is one reason sharks have persisted for so long. But flexibility across lineages does not make individual species invincible. The fossil record shows success and loss together. For every living deep water shark that seems ancient, there were extinct relatives that did not reach the present. Some vanished because environments changed. Some were replaced by competitors. Some disappeared during extinction events. Some may have been specialized in habitats that no longer exist. The surviving lineages are impressive, but they are also remnants of a larger vanished diversity. A tooth from an extinct shark can sit in a human hand, dark and polished, its enamel-like surface still sharp after millions of years. It feels like a direct message from deep time, but it is also quiet. It does not say where the animal swam that morning, what the water temperature was, whether it was young or old, whether it died in a storm, a predator's mouth, a low oxygen event, or ordinary decay. The tooth endured because hard parts endure. The life around it is reconstructed from context. For modern deep-sea sharks, context is still being built. A depth label without temperature is incomplete. A capture without location is limited. A video without scale can mislead. A specimen without genetic data may be difficult to place. A population without reproductive information cannot be managed well. Scientists work from what they have, and the deep sea often gives them less than they want. The public sees the polished version of discovery. A new species named. A rare shark filmed. A long-lived animal reported, but before that are failed deployments, empty frames, damaged equipment, bad weather, lost tags, uncertain identifications, and years of comparison. The ocean does not reveal itself cleanly. It makes knowledge expensive, partial, and worth protecting. There is also humility in the fact that a large shark can avoid being seen for most of its life. Humans map, tag, sample, and film, but the ocean remains bigger than our attention. A research ship can cross a patch of water under which animals are moving in layers, and none will appear at the surface. The absence of sight becomes mistaken for absence of life. Deep-sea sharks correct that mistake whenever they enter a camera beam. The beam itself is a symbol only because it is a tool first. It travels a short distance through particulate water, reflecting off eyes, teeth, scales, sediment, and drifting animals. Beyond it, darkness returns immediately. The shark does not emerge from another world. It emerges from the same water, just outside human visibility. This is the central fact of the deep sea. It is not elsewhere. It is here, beneath the surface, separated from us by depth rather than fantasy. On some nights, a shark may rise toward the lower edge of surface influence. The water grows slightly warmer or brighter. Prey layers thicken. The animal moves through a zone where daylight once existed hours before, though now the sun is gone and the moon may be broken by waves above. It feeds if it can. Before dawn, it descends again. This daily motion connects the ancient body to the rotation of Earth, the movement of light, and the behavior of countless small animals. On other days, the shark remains deep, near bottom, where sediment records movement in tracks and disturbances. A tail beat lifts a small cloud. A crab path crosses it later. Bacteria work in the mud. Worms process organic particles. The shark passes and leaves almost nothing visible behind. Its life is not preserved unless teeth fall, tissue enters a predator or scavenger, DNA sheds into water, or a machine happens to watch. Most lives leave little evidence. That is true across Earth history. The sharks we know from fossils are the tiny fraction that entered preservation. The deep-sea sharks we know from cameras are the tiny fraction that entered light. Between those two narrow records is an immense amount of living and dying without witness. The story of ancient sharks is therefore also a story of what escapes evidence. Not because it is mystical, but because most biology is never recorded. The reference point for human time is too short. A century feels long to us. For a Greenland shark, it may be one phase of growth. For a lineage, it is nothing. For the ocean, it is a surface ripple. Yet human actions within a century can alter populations that took thousands of years to accumulate, and lineages that took hundreds of millions of years to reach the present. This mismatch is one of the most important facts in conservation. A deep water shark population does not respond to depletion on election cycles, market cycles, or even many research funding cycles. It responds through births, growth, survival, and maturity, all of which may be slow. By the time decline is obvious, recovery may already require patience beyond ordinary management expectations. Protecting ancient sharks means thinking on timescales closer to their biology than to our impatience. The deep ocean asks this kind of thinking often. Corals can live for centuries or millennia. Sponges can form old structures. Sediments accumulate slowly. Nodules grow over immense times. Sharks mature late. Food arrives in pulses. Disturbance can be quick. Recovery can be slow. The habitat is not fragile in the sense of weak. It is vulnerable in the sense that many of its processes are not built for rapid, repeated disruption. That vulnerability sits beside resilience. Sharks have survived warming, cooling, shifting seas, moving continents, and extinctions. Deep-sea communities have persisted under pressure, darkness, and scarcity. Life has found ways to use chemistry, falling debris, migration, and patience. But resilience has limits. An animal adapted to rare natural mortality may not withstand constant bycatch. A coral garden adapted to slow breakage may not withstand trawling. A slope community adapted to episodic sediment movement may not withstand industrial disturbance. Seeing ancient sharks clearly means holding both truths. They are resilient lineages and vulnerable species. They are predators and potential victims. They are old in ancestry and current in need. They can seem powerful in a camera frame and still depend on conditions that are easy for humans to disrupt. The shark's body tells a story of survival, but survival is never finished. When a sixgill leaves the rov lights, the frame returns to sediment and marine snow. The control room may replay the footage immediately, measuring the animal against lasers, checking the gill slits, noting the depth. The shark has already moved on. It may descend into darker water, follow the slope, or vanish behind a ridge. The recording becomes evidence. The animal remains alive somewhere beyond it, unrecorded again. That is often the best ending science gets. Not a capture, not a complete explanation, but a verified encounter. A species at a depth, a behavior near bait, a body condition, a movement, a few seconds of life turned into data. The rest remains open, not empty. Open means there is more to learn. Ancient sharks roaming the deep ocean are not reminders that the past survived unchanged. They are reminders that the present is full of old inheritances still working under new conditions. A gill arrangement from deep ancestry, a jaw mechanism refined for darkness, a lifespan stretched by cold, a glow used to disappear, a tooth shed into sediment, a body crossing a slope where sunlight has not reached for a very long time. The ocean above them is not separate. Storms mix it, plankton bloom in it, ships cross it, fishing lines descend from it, carbon falls through it. The deep receives what the surface sends, slowly or suddenly. Every shark in the dark water is connected to processes far above, even if it never rises into light. That connection makes the hidden ocean less remote and more responsible to understand. The next time a deep sea shark appears on a screen, it may be tempting to describe it as a visitor from another age. There is some truth in that, if the phrase is treated gently. Its lineage reaches back farther than ours can easily imagine. Its body may hold traits that were already old before humans existed, but it is not visiting. It lives there. We are the visitors, arriving in a bright machine for a brief interval, then leaving. The shark does not need to know its own history for that history to matter. It carries it in cartilage, teeth, skin, senses, and reproduction. It carries it in the way the tail moves, the way the mouth opens, the way the body saves energy, the way it follows a scent through water without a horizon. Evolution is not a story the animal tells. It is the shape of the animal doing ordinary things. There is a kind of restraint in that realization. The deep sea does not have to be turned into a stage for monsters. It is already a place of immense pressure, scarce food, hidden movement, old lineages, and fragile knowledge. The sharks there do not need to be exaggerated. They only need to be seen accurately, which is much harder and much more valuable. A final camera pass crosses the slope. The sediment is marked by faint tracks. A small fish hovers above a sponge. Particles fall steadily through the lights. Farther downslope, outside the beam, water presses on rock, coral, bone, and living bodies. Somewhere in that darkness, a shark moves slowly enough that a human might mistake patience for stillness, and old enough in its lineage that the movement belongs to a history written mostly in teeth. The surface far above is rough with wind. On the ship, the cable hums under load as the ROV begins to rise. The lights turn away from the bottom. The slope disappears. For a while, the screen shows only black water and falling particles, each one bright for a second before it passes behind the vehicle. The shark is gone, but not absent. It has returned to the part of the ocean where it was always living, beyond the reach of the beam, continuing an ancient life in a modern sea. The first shark-like fishes appeared in a world without birdsong, without mammals, without forests as humans know them. The continents were arranged differently, seas covered different margins, reefs rose and vanished under different animals. The early record is thin, but it is enough to show that cartilage-bodied fishes were already experimenting with the basic plan that would later become so successful: jaws, paired fins, replaceable teeth or tooth-like structures, skin covered in denticles, and a body built to move through water as a predator or scavenger. Those early sharks did not begin as rulers of the sea. No lineage begins with certainty. They shared oceans with armored fishes, jawless fishes, early bony fishes, invertebrate predators, and ecosystems that would seem unfamiliar now. Over time, some shark relatives diversified. Some forms became large. Some carried spines. Some developed crushing teeth. Some vanished without living descendants. The history of sharks is not a straight line leading to a great white or a sixgill. It is a branching tree with many broken limbs. The Carboniferous period saw a major flowering of shark diversity. Coal forests covered parts of the land, amphibians moved through swamps, insects grew large, and in the seas and freshwaters, cartilaginous fishes explored a wide range of forms. Some looked shark-like by modern standards, others did not. This was long before the age of dinosaurs, long before whales entered the sea, long before the deep ocean held the modern food webs that now support sleeper sharks, lantern sharks, and sixgills. Mass extinctions interrupted that history repeatedly. The end Permian extinction devastated marine ecosystems. Later crises reshaped oceans again. Each event removed some lineages and allowed others to expand. Sharks passed through these filters, but not whole. Survivors always make the story look inevitable because they are the ones left to be seen. In the moment of crisis, nothing is inevitable. A lineage survives because enough individuals in enough places possess traits that happen to work under conditions no animal chose. Deep water may have offered refuge in some crises, but not a perfect one. Low oxygen events can affect depth. Food webs can collapse from above. Temperature and chemistry can change across basins. A deep animal depends on surface productivity more than it may appear to. If surface ecosystems fail, the snow that feeds the deep changes. If oxygen falls, habitats compress. If currents reorganize, food and larvae move differently. The deep sea is buffered from some surface shocks, but connected to others. This connected history helps explain why ancient sharks are not simply leftover animals. They are participants in every era they pass through. A sixgill lineage that outlasted old competitors still had to meet new prey, new climates, new seafloor shapes, and new predators. A deep water shark alive today has ancestors that crossed extinction boundaries, but the species itself exists within the modern ocean, shaped by modern prey and modern threats. Human fascination often focuses on the dramatic survival. Sharks before trees. Sharks before dinosaurs. Sharks before humans. These comparisons are useful for scale, but they can become slogans. The real scale is not just that sharks are old. It is that their basic materials and systems have been modified again and again across time. Cartilage, teeth, skin, senses, fins, liver oil, buoyancy, reproduction, and behavior have all been tuned into different combinations. The result is not one ancient design, but a long evolutionary toolkit. The liver is part of that toolkit. Sharks lack a swim bladder, the gas-filled organ many bony fishes use for buoyancy. Instead, they use body shape, lift from fins, and large oil-rich livers to help maintain position in the water. In deep sea sharks, liver oil can be substantial, and that has made some species targets for fisheries. A biological adaptation to buoyancy and energy storage becomes, under human demand, a reason for exploitation. Squalene, a compound in shark liver oil, has been used in various products, though alternatives exist. For deep water sharks, liver oil extraction can be especially damaging because the animals are slow to replace. A shark's buoyancy system, evolved for life in water under pressure, becomes entangled with surface markets. The connection is direct and uncomfortable. A body part that helps an ancient lineage move through the deep can draw that lineage into danger. Buoyancy itself is a constant negotiation. A shark that is too heavy must swim more to avoid sinking. A shark that is too buoyant struggles to descend or hold depth. The deep sea adds pressure and temperature to the equation. Oils behave differently in cold. Tissues respond to depth. Movement costs matter. The slow cruising of many deep water sharks is not laziness. It is the visible expression of an energy economy, hydrodynamic design, and habitat. The pectoral fins act as control surfaces. The tail provides thrust. The head carries sensory systems. The skin reduces drag and may protect against abrasion and parasites. The mouth changes shape during feeding. The body is not a single ancient object, it is a coordinated system of parts doing work. When the animal turns in an ROV beam, all those parts show themselves briefly: lift, thrust, balance, sensing, and decision. Decision is a careful word. Sharks are not machines. They respond to stimuli, learn from environments, and adjust behavior, but we should not project human motives onto them. A shark approaching a camera is not posing. A shark taking bait is not attacking the viewer. A shark leaving the frame is not rejecting science. It is behaving within its sensory world, making movements shaped by hunger, caution, curiosity, and physiology in ways we only partly understand. The deep ocean makes humility practical. Every claim has to pass through the question of how it was known. Was the shark filmed in its habitat or caught at the surface? Was the depth recorded accurately? Was the animal healthy? Was bait present? Was the behavior repeated? Was the species confirmed genetically? Was the sample large enough? This does not drain wonder from the subject. It builds wonder on firmer ground. A preserved frilled shark in a museum may show 6 pairs of gill slits, many teeth, and a long body. It cannot show the pressure of its habitat, the feel of water moving across its skin, the distribution of prey, or the way it held itself before capture. A video can show movement, but only briefly. A tag can show depth, but not the exact prey encountered. A stomach can show food, but not the full hunt. Each method opens a window and closes others. Combining methods is how the animal becomes clearer. A specimen confirms anatomy. A video confirms posture and movement. A tag confirms depth use. A stomach confirms diet. DNA confirms identity and relationships. Stable isotopes can suggest trophic level and feeding habitat. Reproductive organs reveal maturity. Embryos reveal fecundity. None of these alone is the animal, but together they reduce the space where imagination has to guess. Ancient sharks are often presented through their faces, because faces are what humans read first. The blunt head of the sixgill, the stretched snout of the goblin shark, the eel-like head of the frilled shark, the small eyes of the Greenland shark. But much of their adaptation is not in the face. It is in the liver, blood chemistry, muscle composition, reproductive timing, sensory pores, skin texture, and behavior. The deep sea hides what is most important inside bodies. Muscle in some deep water sharks may be less built for sustained speed than in active pelagic hunters. This suits a life of slower cruising, ambush, or scavenging. A goblin shark does not need the muscle profile of a mako. A sleeper shark does not need to patrol like a tuna. Comparing them to surface speed specialists can make them seem sluggish, but that is the wrong standard. The right standard is whether they feed and reproduce in their habitat. The habitat includes silence only from the human point of view. The ocean is not silent. It carries sounds from waves, animals, ships, earthquakes, ice, rain, and the movements of bodies. Deep sharks may use low-frequency cues or vibrations in ways that remain difficult to study. A carcass does not only smell, it attracts movement. A feeding event creates disturbance. A slope channels current. The sensory world is richer than the image. Smell can be especially powerful because water carries dissolved chemicals. A shark following odor does not swim through a smooth trail like a line on a map. It moves through patches and filaments created by turbulence. The animal may turn back and forth, testing concentration, using current direction, and correcting when the plume breaks. The behavior may look aimless to a viewer. To the shark, it is navigation. At a whale fall, odor spreads through the bottom water and can call animals from far away. The first large scavengers tear openings in skin and blubber. Smaller animals enter. Microbes begin processes that will continue long after the large flesh is gone. If a sleeper shark or sixgill feeds there, it is one participant in a sequence. The carcass changes through stages, and different communities replace one another. The shark's bite helps start a transformation that will last far longer than the feeding event. Bones remain after soft tissue disappears. They become habitat and chemical source. Osedax worms may bore into bone. Sulfur-based microbes may support specialized fauna. Sediment around the carcass changes. A whale that fed near the surface becomes deep-sea structure. The shark that bites it participates in moving surface productivity into benthic life. The event is dramatic in scale, but ordinary in principle. Nothing living leaves the food web cleanly. Smaller carcasses fall constantly. Fish, squid, jellies, birds, and marine mammals all descend after death, if not consumed first. Some are eaten in the water column. Some reach bottom. A shark might find only a fragment. A squid mantle. A fish head. A slab of tissue. These meals are less cinematic than a whale fall, but more frequent. They are part of the background economy of the deep. There are also moments of active predation. A deep water shark may take a fish from near bottom, seize a squid, or swallow a smaller shark. The exact hunt may happen outside the beam, leaving only stomach contents as evidence. Predation in darkness may be brief and rare to film. That rarity should not be mistaken for rarity of behavior. The deep sea keeps its most important moments unlit. When predation is filmed, it often surprises because the animal seems slow until it is not. A body that conserves energy can still accelerate when close to prey. A jaw that rests folded can extend quickly. A tail that sweeps slowly can deliver force. Energy conservation does not eliminate power. It concentrates it into moments when power matters. This is especially true in low-food environments. The predator cannot spend all day at maximum effort. It waits for range, angle, and opportunity. A shark missing too often wastes energy. Natural selection favors mechanisms that improve the odds. Better senses, better jaw projection, better teeth for holding, better camouflage, better timing. The deep sea is not only a place of scarcity, it is a place where efficiency becomes visible. Efficiency can look strange: a mouth that extends beyond the head, a glow that erases a silhouette, a body that ages slowly, a tail placed behind a long trunk, 6 gills instead of 5, a single dorsal fin far back. None of these features exists to astonish us. They exist because ancestors bearing them reproduced. Our astonishment is a side effect of meeting animals outside the normal range of human experience. The ancient shark story is also a story of names. Frilled shark, goblin shark, sleeper shark, lantern shark, sixgill. These names carry human impressions: fabric, folklore, sleep, light, anatomy. They help memory, but can mislead. A sleeper shark is not asleep. A goblin shark is not a creature from myth. A lantern shark is not carrying a lantern. A sixgill is more than its gill count. Names are entry points, not explanations. Scientific names add precision, but not always clarity for a general audience. Hexanchus griseus, Chlamydoselacus anguineus, Mitsukurina ostoni, Somniosus microcephalus, Delatius licha. Each name links to taxonomy, specimens, literature, and history. The Latin or Greek roots may carry their own meanings, but the important thing is that names let researchers know they are talking about the same animal. In the deep sea, where mistaken identity is easy, that matters. A name can change when science changes. Species are split. Genera are revised. Relationships are redrawn by DNA. What was once considered one widespread species may become several. What was thought primitive may be reinterpreted. This is not failure. It is correction. The deep ocean, by giving evidence slowly, makes taxonomy dynamic. Ancient animals do not make ancient science. The methods keep updating. Public stories often lag behind. A fact repeated for decades may become outdated, but still circulate. A maximum size becomes a normal size. A rare depth becomes the usual depth. A speculative behavior becomes a habit in narration. This is why restraint matters when writing about deep-sea sharks. It is better to say may, often, in some observations, or the evidence suggests, than to turn uncertainty into a false spectacle. Uncertainty can be beautiful when it is honest. The exact courtship of a frilled shark remains poorly observed. The full movements of many sixgill populations remain incomplete. The life history of many lantern sharks remains sparse. The deep ranges of goblin sharks remain patchy. These gaps are not empty space for invention, they are invitations for better evidence. A research expedition may spend weeks collecting that evidence. Weather delays launch. A vehicle returns with a leak. A camera sees no sharks for days. A bait package is stripped by smaller animals before large predators arrive. A tag does not report. A specimen is too damaged to answer the question. Then, one night, the screen fills with a shark's head, and the work changes, not because all questions are solved, but because a new point has appeared on the map. Those points accumulate across institutions. NOAA, universities, museums, fisheries observers, independent researchers, international expeditions, and local knowledge all contribute. A shark caught by a fisher can become a scientific record if documented. A museum specimen collected decades ago can be re-examined, and ROV dive for geology can record biology by accident. Deep-sea knowledge is often collaborative because no single method or group sees enough. There is a moral dimension to observation. To know more, humans often intervene. We use bait, capture, lights, tags, tissue samples, and sometimes lethal collection. Some intervention is necessary for science. Some can be reduced or replaced. The balance depends on the question, the species, the population status, and the availability of other methods. Ancient sharks do not benefit from ignorance, but they also do not benefit from careless curiosity. Non-invasive tools are improving. Better cameras, lower light systems, environmental DNA, autonomous vehicles, machine learning for image analysis, and improved acoustic arrays can reduce the need to catch animals. But even non-invasive tools have footprints. Vehicles use sound and light. Landers use bait. Ships burn fuel. Data storage and processing require resources. There is no pure observation, only more thoughtful observation. The best deep-sea science admits its footprint. It asks whether the knowledge gained justifies the disturbance, how disturbance can be minimized, and how results can inform protection. This matters especially for slow species. A population that cannot withstand heavy fishing should not be sampled casually by destructive gear if other methods can answer the question. Ancient sharks can help people care about the deep sea because they make time visible. A glowing shark shows adaptation to darkness. A Greenland shark shows a lifespan beyond human scale. A frilled shark shows old anatomical themes. A sixgill shows a large predator where people imagined emptiness. But care should not stop at fascination. It should extend to habitat, prey, reproductive cycles, fisheries, and the less charismatic animals that support the system. The shark is only the visible apex of many relationships. Remove the prey layers, and the shark suffers. Damage deep coral habitats, and smaller animals lose shelter. Alter oxygen, and distributions shift. Remove too many adults, and reproduction fails. Pollute the water, and contaminants move upward through bodies. Protecting a deep-sea shark means protecting more than the shark. This is why a documentary about ancient sharks has to talk about marine snow, lanternfish, squid, slopes, canyons, seamounts, whale falls, and human tools. Without them, the shark becomes a symbol floating in blackness. With them, it becomes what it is, one animal in a real habitat, shaped by physical forces and ecological exchanges. The deep sea does not contain many easy heroes. A shark feeding on a carcass can look brutal. A hagfish entering a body can look disturbing. A parasite on an eye can look cruel. A fish swallowing another fish whole can look excessive. But these are not moral failures. They are ways energy moves where sunlight is absent. The deep sea is not evil. It is not gentle either. It is a functioning world. That world has beauty, but not always the beauty of color and abundance. Sometimes it is the beauty of fit. A body suited to pressure, a tooth suited to prey, a glow suited to invisibility, a slow life suited to cold, a shark taking one efficient bite from a rare meal, a current carrying food through a canyon, a century recorded in an eye lens. These are quiet forms of beauty, and they do not need to be enlarged beyond themselves. In the reference transcript's kind of pacing, the facts build towards scale. Here, the scale is not only size, it is depth, pressure, time, scarcity, and the length of evolutionary survival. A shark does not have to be gigantic to be part of that scale. A lantern shark shorter than a ruler can represent hundreds of millions of years of cartilaginous fish history and a modern adaptation to deep darkness. Small animals can carry large histories. Large animals can carry hidden fragility. A sixgill may look invulnerable next to an rav, but if it matures slowly and produces relatively few young, its population may be sensitive. A Greenland shark may survive centuries, but if it is killed before reproducing enough, its longevity becomes a liability. Size and age impress viewers. Life history determines resilience. Life history is less visually dramatic than teeth, but it is often more important. Age at maturity, litter size, gestation, growth rate, natural mortality, habitat segregation. These numbers decide how a species responds to fishing and environmental change. A shark with dramatic jaws may be safer than a dull-looking species if it reproduces faster or lives in protected habitat. Conservation is rarely guided by appearance. The deep ocean complicates conservation because data are scarce. For many species, scientists do not know population size, trends, or reproductive rates with confidence. Data deficiency is not safety. It can hide risk. If a species is rarely seen because it is naturally rare or difficult to sample, decline can be missed. Managing under uncertainty requires precaution, especially for slow-growing animals. Precaution can sound unsatisfying in a story because it refuses certainty. But in the deep sea, refusing false certainty is part of respect. We can say what is known. Sharks have ancient fossil roots, cartilaginous skeletons, replaceable teeth, sensory systems adapted to water, and many deep water species with slow life histories. We can say what evidence suggests. Certain species use slopes, migrate vertically, scavenge and hunt, and may be vulnerable to overexploitation. We can say what remains unclear, many details of reproduction, population structure, and ordinary behavior. There is enough certainty to care and enough uncertainty to keep studying. That balance is the honest position. A shark crossing a camera beam does not solve the deep ocean. It gives one clear fact: this animal was here, at this depth, at this time, alive. From there, science asks the next question. Sometimes the next question is very simple. How big was it? Lasers mounted on ROVs project dots a known distance apart, letting researchers estimate length. Size helps determine age class, maturity, and species identification. Without scale, a shark can seem larger or smaller, depending on camera angle and distance. The deep sea distorts judgment because there are few familiar objects. Lasers turn awe into measurement. Other questions require sampling. What did it eat? Stomach contents can answer, but only through captured animals or carcasses. What population does it belong to? Genetics can answer. How old is it? Vertebral bands, eye lenses, or chemical methods may help. How often does it reproduce? Reproductive organs and embryos provide clues. What depth does it use? Tags and repeated records help. The questions are concrete because the animal is concrete. There is poetry in that concreteness, but it is restrained. a depth reading, a gill count, a tooth row, a scar, a temperature, a tag track, a preserved eye lens, a camera timestamp. These are the details that let the deep sea become knowable without pretending it is fully known. They are also the details that keep the animal from dissolving into atmosphere. Atmosphere still matters. The deep sea is dark, cold, and difficult. The camera beam does move through falling particles. The shark does appear at the edge of light. The pressure is immense. The water is old. The distances are large. But atmosphere should serve the evidence. It should make the viewer feel the conditions under which facts become meaningful. A sixgill's 6 gills matter more when you see them in the beam, opening and closing as the animal passes. A goblin shark's jaw matters more when you understand it solves a feeding problem in darkness. A Greenland shark's age matters more when placed beside cold metabolism and slow growth. A lantern shark's glow matters more when connected to downwelling light and counterillumination. Facts become vivid when attached to bodies. The bodies are not perfect. Sharks get injured. They carry parasites. Teeth break. Fins tear. Skin scars. Some are thin from hunger. Some are damaged by gear. Some die in nets. Some strand in poor condition. The mythology of sharks often makes them seem flawless, streamlined, unstoppable. Deep sea footage often shows something more honest: animals enduring. Endurance is not passivity, it is active survival over time. A shark that lives slowly still must feed. A shark that waits still must choose. A shark that conserves still must move when needed. A shark that grows old still passes through danger repeatedly. Endurance is made of successful ordinary acts, not one dramatic moment. This is why the ancient shark story should not climax only with an attack. The real climax may be a survival strategy, understood clearly. A lineage passes through hundreds of millions of years by changing enough to persist. A species lives in darkness by using senses beyond vision. A predator remains successful by eating broadly. A population becomes vulnerable because its life history is slow. A human observer learns that the deep sea is not empty and not limitless. Limits define the habitat. Light limits vision. Food limits abundance. Pressure limits access. Cold limits speed. Oxygen limits distribution. Reproduction limits recovery. Human technology limits observation. Each limit shapes the story. Ancient sharks are not impressive because they ignore these limits. They are impressive because their bodies work within them. The rove reaches another ledge. The bottom changes from soft sediment to scattered rock. A coral colony appears, pale branches extended into current. Small fish hold near the structure. A squat lobster backs under a sponge. The vehicle slows. This is a place where prey can concentrate, and where a shark might pass through without being seen. The camera waits. Nothing large enters. The absence is still informative. Not every good habitat contains a visible predator at the moment humans arrive. Waiting is part of deep sea work. Hours of nothing, then seconds that matter. This pacing resembles the animals themselves. Energy saved, attention held, movement only when useful. A deep sea script should not be afraid of that rhythm. It can stay with sediment, instruments, and partial evidence, because that is how the world is actually approached. A shark finally appears at the edge of the coral field. It is not a sixgill this time, but a smaller dark shark, perhaps a dogfish or related deep water form. The body is narrow. The eyes reflect green. The dorsal fins may carry spines. It passes without approaching the vehicle. In a few seconds, it is gone. Many deep-sea sharks live like this in the archive, unbaited, unannounced, crossing a frame during another investigation. Dogfish and gulper sharks include many deep-water species, some of which have been heavily affected by fisheries. They are often less famous than frilled or goblin sharks, but they are central to the deep shark story. Some live along slopes and seamounts. Some have large green eyes. Some reproduce slowly. Some produce valuable liver oil. Some species have declined dramatically where targeted. Their lack of fame did not protect them. Gulper sharks show how a modest-looking animal can carry serious conservation concern. They may not have the visual shock of a goblin shark, but their life histories can be extremely slow. Low fecundity, late maturity, and deep habitat make them vulnerable to overfishing. When such species are removed from slopes, the loss may go unnoticed by the public because there are no iconic jaws or famous footage. Conservation often has to work for animals that do not attract attention. Attention can be uneven. A rare frilled shark at the surface becomes news around the world. A deep water dogfish decline may remain in technical reports. A glowing shark discovery may circulate widely because light is captivating. A slow reproductive rate may not. But ecosystems do not rank species by public appeal. A small deep water shark can be important in food webs, and its loss can signal broader pressure on the habitat. The ancient shark title therefore has to widen carefully. It begins with the charismatic old lineages, but it cannot stop there. The deep ocean is also home to less famous sharks, whose bodies are no less shaped by deep time. Some are small, some dark, some known mainly to fisheries biologists, taxonomists, and museum curators. They are not background. They are part of the living diversity of cartilaginous fishes. A black dogfish in the deep Atlantic, a lantern shark off a continental slope, a gulper shark near a seamount, a sleeper shark under polar water, a sixgill in a canyon, a goblin shark along a margin, a frilled shark in deep slope water. Together they make the deep shark fauna. It is not one monster. It is a community of different strategies, sizes, histories, and risks. The deep sea also contains rays and skates, many of them poorly known. Some lay egg cases on the bottom. Some move over sediment with flattened bodies, feeding on invertebrates and small fishes. Sharks and rays share ancient cartilaginous ancestry, but their forms diverge dramatically. Including rays in the ecological background helps show that the shark story is part of a broader radiation, not an isolated line. Skate egg nurseries in deep habitats have been documented in places where egg cases concentrate near warm water or suitable substrate. These nurseries can be vulnerable to disturbance. While not sharks, skates remind us that cartilaginous fishes often depend on specific reproductive sites. The ancient history of the group meets the modern need for place-based protection. Place matters more than the phrase open ocean suggests. A continental slope is a place. A canyon is a place. A seamount is a place. A cold seep is a place. A nursery ground is a place. A whale fall is a place for a while. A migration layer is a moving place. Ancient sharks roam, but roaming does not mean placelessness. Their movements have patterns because the ocean has structure. Structure can be invisible to us. Temperature layers, oxygen gradients, sound channels, scent plumes, magnetic cues, current boundaries, prey fields. A shark moves through these the way a land animal moves through forest edges, riverbanks, slopes, and clearings. The fact that we cannot see the boundaries does not mean the animal cannot sense them. The surface world trains humans to trust light. We look and decide. The deep ocean requires other kinds of evidence. A sonar layer, a chemical measurement, a DNA trace, a pressure record, a tag depth curve, a scent response, a bite mark, a stomach content. The shark's world is interpreted through instruments because our senses are poorly equipped for it. Even with instruments, our visits are brief. An ROV dive may last hours. A shark may live decades or centuries. A lander may record for a day. A population changes over generations. A research cruise may sample one season. The species may shift across regions and years. This mismatch makes humility not just philosophical, but methodological. The question is never only what was seen, it is how representative that sighting can be. Scientists often speak in ranges because ranges are honest. Depth range, size range, age estimate, distribution, known records, probable prey, possible behavior. Viewers may prefer absolutes, but ranges match living systems. A shark species may occur from hundreds to thousands of meters, but individuals use different parts of that range, depending on age, sex, region, time of day, and prey. The range is not vagueness, it is the animal's flexibility. Flexibility helps survival in deep time. A shark lineage tied to one narrow prey or one narrow habitat may disappear when conditions change. A broader diet, wide depth use, and strong sensory abilities can buffer change. Sixgills, as generalist predators and scavengers, illustrate this. They can feed on many types of animals and carrion. That does not make them immune to fishing, but it helps explain ecological success across varied environments. The same broad diet can make stomach contents surprising. A shark may contain remains of fish from different depths, squid, crustaceans, marine mammals, or other sharks. Interpreting these contents requires understanding scavenging, migration, and secondary consumption. A seal in a Greenland shark stomach does not automatically prove a high-speed chase. A deep fish in a shallower shark does not always mean the shark went deep. Food webs move bodies across depths in complex ways. This complexity is part of why ancient sharks deserve long-form treatment. A short video can show the strange face. A longer script can explain the habitat, evidence, uncertainty, and life history that make the face meaningful. Without that, the animal becomes a thumbnail. With it, the animal becomes a subject. A shark's ordinary day, if day is even the right word in darkness, may contain no dramatic event. It may move along a depth contour. It may pass prey too far away to catch. It may avoid a larger animal. It may adjust buoyancy. It may rest or cruise slowly. It may follow a weak scent and lose it. It may feed once or not at all. Long-form narration can make room for this ordinary life, which is where most biology occurs. The lack of sunlight changes time. Surface animals mark dawn, noon, and dusk visually. Deep animals may respond to vertical migration, internal rhythms, pressure, temperature, and faint light changes transmitted from above. At depths where no daylight reaches, time is still present through feeding cycles, reproduction, tides, currents, and the movement of water masses. Darkness does not abolish rhythm. It changes the cues. Tides can move water along slopes and canyons. Internal waves can lift and lower layers. Currents can concentrate prey against topography. Storms at the surface can affect the delivery of organic material. Seasonal blooms can alter the amount of marine snow. Even the deep bottom receives pulses from events far above. A shark living there may not see the storm, but it may later encounter the food the storm helped send down. In polar regions, seasonality can be extreme in light, but muted at depth. Long dark winters and long summer days influence surface production, which then affects deeper food webs. Greenland sharks and other polar deep water animals live in systems where cold and season interact strongly. The slow pace of life there is tied to temperature, but the availability of prey still varies. Longevity does not mean every year is the same. The phrase roaming suggests freedom, but movement is constrained. A shark cannot simply go anywhere. Temperature matters, oxygen matters, pressure tolerance matters, prey matters, reproductive needs matter, geological features matter. A large shark may cross great distances, but it does so through a landscape of constraints. Roaming is not aimless. It is navigation within limits. Ancient sharks also challenge the idea that evolution always erases old features. 6 gill slits persisted in some lineages because they continued to work. A single dorsal fin far back persisted because the body plan remained viable. The frilled shark's eel-like form persisted within its lineage because it matched its feeding and habitat. Old does not mean obsolete. It means tested under changing conditions. Some old features persist alongside new changes. A lineage may retain a basic body plan, while genes, physiology, behavior, and ecology shift. This is why unchanged for millions of years is usually too simple. External similarity can hide internal change. The animal's silhouette may look old, but its populations have histories, adaptations, and genetic differences shaped by more recent events. Deep-sea researchers know this because NOAA often reveals hidden structure. Populations separated by ocean basins, currents, depth, or history may differ even when bodies look similar. A shark that seems globally uniform may contain regional lineages. Conservation then becomes more complex. Losing one population may mean losing unique genetic history, not just reducing a worldwide number. The ocean is large enough to create separation without land. Currents, temperature, depth, and distance can isolate populations. Seamount chains may serve as stepping stones for some animals and barriers for others. Continental margins can guide movement. Deep basins can separate slope habitats. For sharks, which can be mobile, population structure varies widely. Mobility does not always mean mixing. A shark tagged near one slope may remain surprisingly local, or it may travel far beyond expectations. Both outcomes have been found in different species. This is why assumptions are risky. A large body does not always mean wide movement. A deep habitat does not always mean isolation. The animal's actual track is better than our guess. There is a quiet drama in waiting for a tag to report. Months after release, the tag detaches, floats to the surface, and transmits summaries of depth and temperature. The shark itself is gone, but its recent history arrives as data packets. Lines on a graph reveal dives, ascents, repeated depth bands, nights, days, and possible migrations. A life in darkness becomes a pattern on a screen. Graphs can be as cinematic as footage if read properly. A depth curve rising at night and falling by day shows a predator linked to planetary rotation and prey migration. A sudden deep dive may indicate movement across a slope or response to conditions. A stable depth band may show habitat preference. The animal is absent from the graph visually, but its behavior is present. The same is true of chemistry. Stable isotopes in tissue can indicate where energy came from in the food web. Fatty acids can suggest diet. Contaminants can reveal exposure. Eye lenses can store time. Vertebrae can record growth. The shark's body becomes an archive. Ancient lineage, modern life, and environmental history meet in tissue. That archive must be interpreted carefully because deep-sea systems are slow and complex. A tissue sample integrates meals over time, not one event. A contaminant may reflect long-term exposure. An isotopy value may represent multiple pathways. A growth band may be ambiguous. The work is technical because the questions are subtle. The public may never see most of this work, but it makes the visible moments reliable. When a narrator says a Greenland shark may live for centuries, that statement rests on eye lenses, radiocarbon dating, and statistical ranges. When a narrator says deep water sharks are vulnerable, it rests on life history and population studies. When a narrator says a goblin shark's jaws protrude to capture prey, it rests on anatomy and observation. The calm sentence carries a lot of labor. In the deep sea, calm is often the right tone. The facts are strong enough without shouting. A shark older than empires does not need music to be remarkable. A glowing vertebrate longer than a person does not need exaggeration. A lineage older than trees does not need to be called a nightmare. A camera at 1,000 meters seeing a sixgill pass through sedimented light is already enough. The ending of this story is not an ending for the sharks. They will continue if conditions allow. Some populations will decline if pressure remains too high. Some may be protected. Some species will be described that are not yet named. Some behaviors will be filmed for the first time. Some assumptions will be corrected. The deep ocean will keep changing, and ancient lineages will either adapt, move, persist, or vanish as lineages have always done. What humans can change is the speed and severity of the pressure we add. Fishing can be managed, bycatch can be reduced, habitats can be protected, trade can be monitored. Mining decisions can be delayed or restricted where knowledge is insufficient. Research can be funded. Public fascination can be turned toward care rather than consumption. None of this requires pretending the sharks are gentle or sacred. It requires recognizing that they are slow, valuable parts of a system we still barely see. The last image is not a jaw. It is a body moving away. A tail fading into black water, marine snow closing behind it. The slope continuing beyond the light. The shark's 6 gills, or pale snout, or small glowing belly, or heavy polar body no longer visible, but still present in the habitat. The machine remains for a moment, then turns. The animal keeps the deep sea to itself again. Above, the ship retrieves the vehicle. The cable rises wet and dark. People secure the ROV on deck. Hard drives are labeled. Samples are logged. The sea surface moves as if nothing unusual happened below. That is how most deep-sea discoveries end, with ordinary procedures after extraordinary proximity. The ancient shark has become footage, data, and memory. Below, the water closes without ceremony. The particles keep sinking. The slope holds its tracks. Small animals resume their movements. Somewhere beyond the reach of light, a shark continues along a path shaped by hunger, pressure, cold, smell, and old inheritance. It is not waiting for us to understand it. It is living, as its lineage has done through seas that changed again and again, carrying deep time through the modern ocean, one slow movement at a time. Across the Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, Arctic, and Southern Oceans, the pattern repeats with local differences. A slope off Japan is not the same as a canyon off California. A seamount near New Zealand is not the same as a fjord connected to Arctic water. The shark species change, the prey change, the temperatures change, and the history of fishing changes. But the underlying problems remain recognizable. How to find food in darkness, how to move under pressure, how to reproduce slowly enough to fit the habitat and quickly enough to persist. Regional knowledge matters because a species' global name can hide local reality. A shark may be common in one region and rare in another. A nursery may exist in shallow water while adults use deep slopes elsewhere. A population may be connected across borders, making protection in one country incomplete without cooperation in another. The deep sea often lies beyond ordinary public attention, but it is not beyond political boundaries, fishing agreements, or management decisions. In some places, local fishers have known deep water sharks longer than scientists have studied them systematically. A strange catch, a depth where certain sharks appear, a season when juveniles are seen, a slope where gear comes back damaged, a body that spoils quickly because of high oils. Such observations may not be formal science by themselves, but they can guide questions. When combined with careful records, they can help locate patterns that research vessels alone might miss. The animal on a deck can create both knowledge and regret. Its size can be measured. Its sex can be recorded. Tissue can be preserved. Stomach contents can be examined. Reproductive condition can be noted. But the same body also shows the cost of learning through capture. For rare or vulnerable species, every specimen matters in two ways, as data and as a life removed from a slow system. That tension is part of deep-sea research and should not be hidden. A live release is not always simple. A shark brought from depth may suffer barotrauma, temperature stress, exhaustion, or injury from gear. Some survive release, some do not. Handling methods matter. Depth of capture matters. Hooking location matters. Time on deck matters. Researchers and fishers trying to reduce mortality need species-specific information, and for many deep water sharks, that information remains incomplete. Good intentions do not replace biology. Technology can help. Descending devices, better hook designs, reduced soak times, avoidance of vulnerable depths, and careful handling can improve outcomes in some fisheries. Electronic monitoring and observer programs can help document bycatch. Genetic tools can identify species in trade. International agreements can reduce pressure on the most vulnerable groups. None of these tools is dramatic, but conservation often depends on undramatic improvements repeated across many vessels and years. Deep sea sharks also complicate the way people think about wilderness. The deep ocean can feel untouched because humans rarely see it, but untouched is no longer a safe assumption. Fishing lines, lost gear, chemical traces, warming water, and plastic fibers can reach places where no diver has ever been. The absence of human bodies does not mean the absence of human influence. The deep is remote to our senses, not remote to our consequences. At the same time, the deep is not already lost. Many habitats remain poorly known. Some populations may still be relatively intact. New observations continue to surprise researchers. Protection can still prevent damage before it becomes permanent. The fact that ancient sharks remain in deep water at all means there is still something living to understand and defend. A narrative that makes the deep only doomed can become as misleading as one that makes it untouched. The right tone is neither despair nor celebration. It is attention. Attention to the animal's body. Attention to the habitat around it. Attention to the method that revealed it. Attention to the limits of the evidence. Attention to the human systems that now reach it. Attention is slower than fear and less exciting than myth, but it lasts longer. A deep sea shark does not know it has become a symbol of deep time, but symbols affect how humans behave. If the animal is treated as a monster, people may cheer its death. If it is treated as a miracle, people may ignore its ordinary ecological needs. If it is treated as a real animal, the response can become more useful. Real animals need habitat, prey, reproductive success, and reduced unnecessary mortality. The deep ocean is full of such real animals. Some have names known only to specialists. Some have never been named. Some will be described from a single specimen and then not seen again for years. Some are common on cameras once scientists look in the right place. The apparent rarity of a species can reflect actual scarcity, sampling difficulty, or both. Distinguishing these possibilities takes time and repeated effort. There is humility in a species described from one shark. The description is careful. Measurements, teeth, fins, gills, vertebrae, skin, genetics if possible, comparison with relatives. The animal becomes a name in the literature, but its ecology may remain almost unknown. Where does it breed? How long does it live? What does it eat? Is it threatened? Does it occur widely or only in one region? A name opens the door. It does not finish the room. Ancient lineages often survive as specialists in places humans overlook. That does not make them primitive. Specialization can be highly refined. A shark living along deep slopes may be as precisely matched to its environment as a hummingbird is to flowers or a cheetah to open pursuit. The difference is that our culture has seen the hummingbird and cheetah more often. Familiarity is not a measure of biological sophistication. The deep sea reverses many assumptions about importance. A faint glow matters more than bright color. Slow movement matters more than speed. Smell matters more than line of sight. A carcass matters more than a chase. A reproductive interval matters more than a dramatic hunt. The ancient sharks roaming there are impressive, partly because they make these reversed values visible. Imagine a small lantern shark moving through the lower twilight. Its underside glows just enough to blur against faint light from above. Above it, animals migrate upward. Below it, larger predators watch for silhouettes. The shark's glow may reduce the shadow it casts. Its eyes gather what light remains. Its body stays small because smallness fits the energy available. It is not spectacular in the way a huge predator is spectacular, but it is a precise deep-sea solution. Now imagine a sixgill far below, passing over mud where a whale bone has settled into sediment years after most flesh disappeared. The shark may not feed there now. The main event is over. But the sight still alters the local community. Worms, microbes, and small animals continue the transformation. The shark crosses a place where surface life became deep habitat. It is one moment in a process that outlasts many visits. Imagine a goblin shark along a slope where the bottom is not visible, only suspended particles and the occasional flash of an animal leaving the light. Its snout samples the near field. The jaws remain folded. Nothing happens for a long time. Then, a prey item enters range, and the animal changes shape in an instant. The strangeness of the strike is the visible part of long patience. Imagine a Greenland shark under cold water with no camera present. It is not moving for us. It is not performing age. Its heart beats, its tissues work slowly, and its body continues through a season that may matter little in the darkness below ice. The animal's extraordinary lifespan is built from unrecorded hours. Most of what makes it remarkable is never seen. This is the central difficulty of making a film about ancient sharks. The most honest subject is often not the most visible. Longevity cannot be filmed directly. Evolution cannot be filmed directly. Slow reproduction cannot be filmed in a single scene. Population vulnerability cannot be seen in one animal. The script has to connect visible images to invisible processes without pretending the images show everything. A tooth can stand for evolution if the narration explains why teeth preserve. A camera beam can stand for limited knowledge if the narration shows what lies beyond it. A slow turn can stand for energy economy if the narration connects movement to food scarcity. A depth reading can stand for pressure if the narration gives the body conditions. The visible and invisible have to be braided carefully. When that is done well, the deep sea shark becomes more than a strange face. It becomes a way into ocean history, sensory biology, pressure adaptation, food webs, conservation, and the limits of observation. The animal remains central, but the world around it comes into focus. This is how a narrow title can open into a large subject without losing its anchor. The anchor should always return to the shark. Not the ocean as a vague mystery, not darkness as a mood, not ancientness as a slogan. The shark, the gill slits, the teeth, the skin, the slow tail, the glow, the eye lens, the stomach content, the tag track, the specimen label, the body moving beyond the beam. These details keep the story honest. A final descent in the imagination brings us back to the continental slope. The rove settles above the bottom, thrusters correcting in small bursts. Marine snow falls through the light. The depth number is steady. The temperature is low. For several minutes, there is only sediment, a sponge, and the shadow of a fish that refuses to come closer. Then the water darkens at the edge of the frame. A head appears. The shark enters without ceremony. 6 gills open and close. The mouth remains shut. One eye reflects and then goes dull as the angle changes. It does not know that humans have named its family ancient. It does not know that its form reminds us of fossils. It does not know that cameras, papers, and scripts will follow its passing. It knows the water through senses older than our species and more suited to this place than ours will ever be. For a moment, the machine and the animal share a few meters of ocean. The machine brings light, measurement, and memory. The animal brings the continuity of a lineage that crossed impossible lengths of time by remaining functional, not mythical. Then the shark turns. The tail sweeps once, twice, and the body moves out of frame. The water closes behind it with falling particles. Nothing final has been explained. That is important. The encounter has added evidence, not possession. The shark remains partly unknown because its world remains larger than our instruments. But the unknown is no longer empty. It has gills, teeth, skin, motion, ancestry, and vulnerability. It has a place in the living deep. The ancient sharks roaming the deep ocean are not waiting below us like legends. They are living beside us on another vertical level of the same planet. They carry histories older than the landscapes we recognize, but their survival depends on the conditions of the present. To see them clearly is to see deep time and modern responsibility in the same slow movement through dark water. The shark's absence after it leaves the frame should not feel like disappearance. It is a reminder that most life in the deep ocean happens beyond human attention. The camera records a crossing, but not the destination. The tag records depth, but not every decision. The specimen records anatomy, but not a lifetime. Ancient sharks remain partly out of reach because their habitat is partly out of reach, and that distance is not a flaw in the story. It is one of the main facts. A careful script can end without pretending the mystery is solved. It can leave viewers with the animal rather than the myth, a body under pressure, moving through cold water, using old senses in a modern sea. It can respect the science by naming what is known and what is not known. It can respect the shark by allowing it to be ordinary in its own environment, even when that ordinary life seems extraordinary from ours. The next descent may show a different species, or no shark at all. It may find only sediment, coral, a passing squid, and the long fall of marine snow. But that is part of the same world. Ancient sharks do not fill every frame, and they do not need to. Their presence is measured in traces, sightings, teeth, tracks, tissues, and rare moments of light. The deep ocean is large enough for them to remain themselves. That patience is difficult for a surface species. Humans want the hidden animal to arrive on schedule, face the camera, display its teeth, and prove the title. The deep sea rarely cooperates that neatly. It gives a fin tip, a shadow, a track in sediment, a tooth in rock, a jaw in a museum, a line on a depth chart, and sometimes one clear encounter that has to carry more meaning than it should. Learning to accept partial evidence is part of learning the deep ocean. In that partial evidence, the ancient sharks become more real. A myth has no missing data because a myth can say whatever it wants. A living animal has limits around what we know. It can be misidentified, undersampled, overinterpreted, and later understood more clearly. The gaps do not weaken the animal. They remind us that it exists outside the story, in water where its needs are not arranged around human curiosity. The old lineages will keep moving through that water tonight. Some will travel along slopes, some will hold near bottom, some will rise with prey layers, some will glow faintly beneath the last traces of light. Some will feed, some will fail to feed, some will carry young, some will avoid a hook by chance, and others will not. The ancient ocean is not past tense down there. It is present tense, repeated in small acts of survival. So the final image stays simple. Not a roaring predator, not a fossil brought back from extinction, not a secret giant hiding below the maps. A shark. In dark water, shaped by ancestry and by the demands of the moment, moving through a habitat that is cold, pressurized, living and incomplete in our knowledge. It is enough to watch it pass carefully and to understand that the brief light around it is ours, not its own.